It's a beautiful brand new day. Today, the 24th of January 2024. Welcome to the AM show and a great morning to you. My name is Sweetie Abochi and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. We have a plethora of conversations today and news that matters. In a few moments, I'll serve you the news, bring you all the details of what's happening around the country. Then, right after, NPP parliamentary candidate hopeful for Botiano Inglesia Manfro constituency, lawyer Vida Ejekume Champong, will be our guest for the news review. After that, we go into AM Sports, where Mubarak Haruna will present his segment. But you want to stay for the big stories. The Bank of Ghana says it has received $600 million, the second tranche of the Ghana's bailout package with International Monetary Fund. Now, what this means is that Ghana has received $1.2 billion out of the approved $3 billion. We've got this on our table under the big story, so you want to stay for that. We'll also tell you later on about a UK investment summit scheduled for May 2024. Now, the summit will bring together political and business leaders from the UK and 25 invited African countries, as well as international and regional organizations, to set out an enhanced commercial offer and strengthen UK-African partnership. That's an insightful one that you want to stay for. And then we have AM on Wheels. Today we are in Botiano Inglesia Manfro constituency, where we hear from the resident and then interact with the Member of Parliament for the area, Sylvester Tete. You don't want to miss that. Now, we also interact with Oti Regional Minister Joshua Makubu. There's a lot happening in Nkwanta. We'll get details from there as well. And then later on, we'll talk about how a doctor in finance would inspire PWDs. Then later we say, have your say. We open the phone lines for you to talk about what's happening, how you're receiving information that we're giving you on the show. So, well, this is the AM show. Welcome. My name is Sweetie Abochi and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. Stay tuned for the news. Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for the news. Let's begin from residents of Seprepor in the Kpando municipality who vowed to resist construction and operation of a fuel station in the area. They say the location poses danger to them. Now, executive member of the Seprepor Zone 3 Landlords and Ladies Association, Charles Dubin, spoke at a news conference. Here's more from Tema correspondent Kwame Yanka.
The aggrieved residents say siting of the fuel station poses a great risk to hundreds of school children at Christ the King Presby Primary and JHS and the church, which are 3 houses away from the site. They added that the filling station, being a few meters away from the base ammunition depot of Michel Camp, could spell doom in the event of an explosion, as the depot experienced a blast about 4 years ago. Although these residents, since September 2023, have drawn attention of authorities to the potential dangers of the station, their cries have fallen on deaf ears. Executive member of the Seprepor Zone 3 Landlords and Ladies Association, Charles Dubin, indicated they have informed Bonkatamanso Municipal Chief Executive, Samuel Uko-Amankwa, and others who matter.
We are giving the authorities 2 weeks from today. If they don't halt the project, the Residents Association, the citizens of this community, is going to demonstrate against the government, the authorities, the MCE, the commanding officer of Michel Camp, the commanding officer of BAD, because we've already written to them. So we are giving them 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, if we see anybody in that construction site, the resident is going to mobilize and then go against them. We will never allow anybody to come to the site and work.
Assembly member for the area, Prince Jacob Ajovo, shares his frustration in getting the Bonkatamanso Municipal Assembly to act.
So at a point in time, the complaint came up. There's a filling station going on here. We took time to confirm that. We sent this complaint to the committee in assembly, which was security and justice. with a report. At our very last general meeting and assembly before the year ended, this issue came up. And we said that the community is against the siting of this station here. Therefore, what they want is that the thing should be temporarily halted until there's enough proof that really took permission from the appropriate authorities. In fact, if you take this right up, the last page, you will see the conditions that must be met before such permit is given. And we don't think that those conditions have been met.
Resident Bright Seshi is worried over the deafening silence of state institutions and authorities.
Yes. When you branch, a car is negotiating, you are negotiating this curve and the car is coming out. How can you control yourself? Are you supposed to run, are you going to run into the school, or you run into the houses, or you run into the car? What is happening? The military base is just here, BAD. We were told that this is where the whole Ghana, this is where our bombs are kept. There's concrete evidence, it's just here. Relies on here.
Meanwhile, representative of the Chief of Sebrepo, Emmanuel Aite, warned that the traditional authorities will not sit unconcerned for the sport to be used for a fuel station.
Must be halted immediately. Other than that, those who have received the letter sent to them will come and find dead bodies here. The message I brought from the chief is anything detrimental to the security and life of his subjects here must be stopped immediately. He didn't give the land for a filling station. He gave the land to late Sami Agbowoka, a retired military man, who resold part of the land to a developer. And the one who bought the land from the late military man might have also sold it back to a developer who is now putting up this sort of structure. So the divisional house is not aware that this thing is being developed.
When Municipal Chief Executive for Ponkatamanso, Samuel Okuamankwa, was contacted, he declined to speak on the matter. The residents have so far written to Environmental Protection Agency, Intema, Ghana National Fire Service at Bechile, General Manager of ECG, Tema Region, District Manager of ECG, Ashaman District, and Chief of Sebrepo. The rest are Greater Accra Regional Minister, the Chief of Defence Staff of Ghana Armed Forces, Commanding Officer of 1st Infantry Battalion, Michel Camp, Base Ammunition Depot, and the Police Commander for Kpando District. Kwame Yankes reports for Joy News.
Now, multinational conglomerate Group Indom is advocating strict adherence to environmental sustainability laws and good governance of companies in the country. The group emphasizes that the incorporation of such principles by businesses will contribute to the preservation of the ecological space within which these companies operate. President of Group Indom, Nana Kweku Indom, was speaking after he joined residents of Elmina to clean the environment to make Elmina one of the environmentally friendly places in Ghana. There's more in this report.
Group Indom, as part of its agenda to go green and also ensure good sanitation in the country, joined residents of Mofrachinim in Elmina in the Central Region to clean a refuse dump in the community. The president of Group Indom, Nana Kweku Indom, says environmental sustainability and good governance should be a good corporate practice for every company.
So here on this main road, a lot of the people who come into Elmina, a lot of people who come to Coconut Grove, they pass by this area and you can see it's kind of unsightly. So we said, what can we do to beautify the environment and also put some plans in place to make sure that there's a long-term plan for keeping this area clean. So we decided we would come here. It's also part of the commemoration of 30 years at Coconut Grove Beach Resort and 25 years at Coconut Grove Regency. So this is one of the projects that they've undertaken in collaboration with the group. One of the sessions that we had was about ESG. So there are these three pillars of running a business. Okay, you have environmental, you've got social, and governance. So nowadays, when people are looking and evaluating companies, it's more about how much money do you make. It's about what is your impact on the environment. So that's the E. What is the impact on society, your stakeholders, your employees, the people who live in the communities around you, your board members and other stakeholders. That's the S. And then the G is the governance. How well are you monitoring and making sure that things are being done well within your organization? So nowadays, when people are looking for companies to invest in or companies to support, they look and see, are you doing these three things in addition to making profit? You know, back in the day, it was all about, well, are you making money? What are my returns?
Assemblyman for Bantama electoral area in Elmina, Emmanuel Kofi Jenny, was thankful to the group for the show of support for the environment, indicating such a practice should be sustained.
In our community, like communal labor, so I think what they have done today is a good thing for the community and the GM group as a whole. So as I'm a assembly member here now, what I will say is the community people, we have to make sure that we should not dump anyhow. When we come and dump, we have to walk fast so that we can dump there. You can see it's all over trash in the road. So what we have done today, I think we have to make sure that to continue so that we can keep our community clean at the same time and healthy.
Some of the traditional leaders of the area who joined the exercise expressed their appreciation to the group for the step in sanitizing the space they work in. Group Indom is marking 30 years of its existence this year.
Now, away from that, pre-tertiary students in the Nkwanta South municipality have, in a 3-point message, appealed to the Nkwanta South Municipal Security Council to take immediate steps to end the conflict in the township, as the situation and its attendant curfew is affecting the quality of education in the area. The pupils have also appealed to the Regional Security Council to review the curfew in the area. Now, OT Regional Correspondent Peter Senu has more.
On Monday, 22nd of January 2024, the pre-tertiary students and the young learners took to the streets of Nkwanta to register their displeasure about the ethnic conflict that has plagued the area for over 3 months now. For these young learners, conflict has no place in education, as COVID-19 has already wreaked much havoc to education delivery in the municipality.
We, the pre-tertiary school students of Nkwanta Township and Nkwanta South Education Directorate, keenly observe in pain how destructive COVID-19 was to education delivery in our municipality. As if not enough, while school activities are returning into its normal state, we were confronted with inter-ethnic conflict in Nkwanta Township, leading to our parents' voluntary withdrawal of us from schools, classrooms and teachers fleeing school communities. Our educational curriculum content taught us that we as Ghanaian and citizens of one nation are diverse in many ways, and in this diversity lies our strength. In our schools and classrooms, we are one people and not segregated into Adele, Achode, Chala, Intribo or Konkomba ethnic groups.
They want authorities to consider, among other things, provide security for their teachers and learners to and from conflict-prone communities.
To disarm the youth and war contractors and organize peace dialogue to end the Nkwanta Township conflict. 2. Identification of deceased families and victims of the conflicts, their children, and treatment from their shocks and trauma. Finally, provisions of security escort for teachers who commute from Nkwanta Township to Share, Odomi, and Gekrong school communities in the mornings and after schools.
We hope this message will be considered.
According to Jonathan Kosina, the Municipal Director for Education, the conflict has had psychological and emotional torture on both workers and learners in affected areas.
The conflict has cast a dark shadow over the centuries of learning in Nkwanta. Our schools, once vibrant center of knowledge, has borne the brunt of instability. From disrupted class schedules to the emotional and psychological torture inflicted on workers and students. The impact on our students' education has been profound. It is our collective responsibility to acknowledge and address these challenges as we strive for the restoration of conducive learning environment.
Well, we also hope that this message is considered. Meanwhile, some youth in the area have resorted to bodybuilding to contain the hardship they say the curfew imposed on the area since October 2023 has brought them. They say building their bodies is the surest way to stay healthy and happy, while authorities work to bring lasting peace to the area. Peter Stenu again.
I chanced on these young men while monitoring the reopening of schools after 2 months of closure in Nkwanta South. I took interest because I initially thought they had gathered for violence, but not. The group is made up of teachers, nurses, and national service persons in various fields. They lift various heavy-weighing objects to exercise their bodies. Redeemer speaks for the group. He tells Joy News they are not exercising for violence, but for peace and to keep fit.
We are only here to also exercise the body so that we can be fit to live our normal living, not here to advocate for violence. So we are only here to only get fit. You see all the boys here doing all better work so that we can get fit, because we are all government workers over here. So we don't want violence, we need peace. So we are only here this morning to warm up our body to get fit so that we will not get sick someday to come. So that's why we are here.
What do you do for yourself?
Me, I'm an electrical engineer and I teach as well. So that's what we do. But most of them are service personnel, and we have nurses among we also. And some also are doing their own businesses.
He says the conflict in the area is affecting their quality of life and finances.
The time you need to wake up and come to gym before you get to work is very, very getting us worse. So the thing that is happening is not good at all, and it's very, very bad. And we are now even now spending more that we are expecting to spend. So
what do you mean by that?
Now let's say in the evening you're supposed to spend like 10 cedi to eat. Because you go indoors by 5, you need to buy extra to keep it indoors. So due to that, we spend more. And due to the conflict, the prices of food went higher. So we don't have that kind of money to afford those food. So due to the conflict, we can say it brings down our financial issues. So due to that, we have more problems in terms of our financials.
He has also added his voice to the call for peace in the area.
What we are planning is we need peace. We need peace. And that's why we came here to advocate peace to the whole world. So sometimes, let's say Saturday morning, when it is around 6:30 a.m., we walk around the streets to talk to people to stop all this violence. Because when the killing goes on, we are rather messing up everything. So what we need more is peace. We need peace among our people.
Right, so the folks you see here are not training for violence. They just want to keep fit. We have nurses, teachers, and other service guys among them. They just want to keep fit while authorities work to, as it were, bring lasting peace to the Nkwanta area. Peter Senu for Joy News.
Now, you may have heard the story of Mimuna Bukari some 6 years ago when she was repeated for her inability to pay the registration fees for the West African Senior School Certificate Examination. She was short of 50 Ghana cedis and had to get herself employed as a local fufu chop bar to enable her save for the examination. Following a report by Joy News, Mimuna had all her feeding and exam fees taken care of by a former WA supervising High Court judge, Justice Kwesi Boache, and daughter Ella. But Mimuna was unable to make it to the tertiary level. Mimuna was later supported to learn a trade as a fashion designer and now has graduated. Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
6 years ago, then 20-year-old Mimuna Bukari was spotted in this chop bar, pounding fufu, to save 50 Ghana cedis to enable her register for the West African Senior High School Certificate Examination. Mimuna was repeated at Brifo Senior High School for her inability to pay in full the registration fees for the exam, with poverty appearing to be as permanent as her travel marks. It would have been okay for the then 20-year-old to roll over and remain a yearly statistics for Ghana Statistical Service Poverty Survey. But with 2 hands and a Ghana score, Mimuna Bukari pulled together her own great escape from penury by pounding fufu and carrying loads until 2018. father deceased more than 15 years ago, a weak firewood selling mother, and a set of hungry siblings, hope for bloodline support does not exist. And so, the unassuming young woman from Duse in the West district of the Upper West region made a silent resolve, never again. The future of Mimuna Bukari then began to change following a report aired on her plight by Joy News. The former supervising High Court judge, Justice Kwesi Boakye, and her United Kingdom-based sister, Beverly, and the daughter, Ila, came to her aid. They did not only pay for the exam fees, but took care of all expenses incurred during her one-year stint at the school. Mimuna could not get the grade required of her to pursue further education at the tertiary level. She opted to learn a trade as a fashion designer. The cost of her training and equipment were fully funded by the former supervising High Court judge and her sister at Malson tailoring shop owned by Helder Mahmood. In addition, a single room was rented for her for the last 5 years, coupled with payment of monthly stipends to cushion her to learn the trade. After 4 years of being an apprentice, Mimuna Bukari sat for a professional certificate of proficiency in garment making exam and scored grade A. She was therefore graduated with 50 others at a special graduation ceremony held in Wa. Mimuna was almost in tears and sought of words to thank her benefactors who were not present at the function.
I just don't know what to say. I'm really excited. May God bless the judge, his sister and daughter.
Mimuna's aunt, Mimuna Kipo, was equally grateful.
We never thought that through pounding fufu, Mimuna would have gotten such a lot. We are excited and we pray that God give them their heart desire.
Chief Examiner and tutor at the Watanakala Institute, Abubakar Abdul Karim, who chaired the function, urged other benevolent individuals and organizations to turn their attention to other brilliant but needy students to help better their lives.
This story touched our High Court judge and then the sister, and they came in and assisted our sister to be able to undergo this training successfully. We are very grateful to them, and we are also asking other agencies that can help us to train those that are needy but brilliant, so that at least we can also help the government to minimize the youth unemployment that is affecting the country.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam.
That will be all for the AM News. Up next is the news review with Benjamin Akakpo, joined by lawyer Vida Ejekume Champong, who's the NPP parliamentary candidate hopeful for English Amman from constituency. Keep watching.
On the AM show, time now for us to get into the news review. Of course, show started as always by Sweetie Abochi. Hope you stayed with her for the news. Right now, though, we get into the news review, and this segment, as always, is brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's what they are offering you: if you're a man, prostate screening for free; if you're a woman, fertility screening for free. And here's where you can locate them across the length and breadth of Ghana. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State, there's Tema Community 22, there's Techiman Huntsway and Siamanzama. Their call lines remain 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and joining us, as Sweetie announced, the MPP's parliamentary candidate hopeful for Botiano English Amanfro constituency, Vida Ajekum Echampong. She's a lawyer. Good morning, Vida.
Good morning.
It's good to have you join the conversation this morning. And since it's our first interaction, I'd just like to find out a little bit about you. I know you're a lawyer.
Yes.
Beyond that, who is Vida Ajekum?
Well, Vida Ajekum Echampong, I am resident of Botiano English Amanfrom constituency.
Right.
In fact, I call myself a teacher, also a lecturer, and a journalist too. I've done all of those before becoming a lawyer. I've been a teacher at all the various levels of education, basic, secondary, tertiary. I've taught at the JE University College, Media Law, Media Ethics. I've also taught at the UCOMS, University College of Management Studies, Company and Partnership Laws. And I was a basic teacher within the constituency, tutoring the young ones. And I'm proud to say that on the 27th, 5 of the people who are going to vote for me are people I taught when they were children.
You mean the delegates? Some of these delegates?
Some of these delegates.
That's an interesting one.
I've also been a correspondent for Africa Radio in London, so I'm a friend of the media. And so I'm also a lawyer, as you have already said. So I'm a woman of many professions, and I've lived within the Botiano English Amanfrom community for the past 25 years. And that is why I seek the mandate of the people to serve them as their next member of parliament.
Okay, so just to focus a bit on that. You say you've lived in the constituency for 25 years.
Yes.
And then you added, that is why I seek to represent the people. I'm sure there are people who have lived.
That's one of the many reasons why.
Now there you go.
One of the many reasons.
But let me just sneak this by you. For all of those who have come here, all the members of parliament, would-be members of parliament, want to be members of parliament who have passed through, and now because of your primaries, all of you coming through, from the Hayford Sians to the Palgrave, Boachedanquez, and all of that. What sets you apart? Like you mentioned, I mean, there are a number of those going. And in fact, you're going against the incumbent, Sylvester Tete, who is also a force to reckon with. I'd like to find out from you, what makes you stand out? What makes you think you can get the nod? Especially when we also know that in our politics, the fact is women tend to be marginalized in many ways. You look at the numbers in parliament, you look at women ministers, it paints a certain picture. So what has given you the courage and what makes you think you can do this?
Thank you very much. I've been with the party for many years. I've served the party both within the constituency and out of the constituency. Out of the 3 people contesting, I'm the only one who has served in a capacity as a polling station secretary within the constituency. And so I've been with
past experience.
Yes, I've been with the grassroots. I am still with them. In fact, I am voting myself on Saturday. And so I'm one of the people who go up and down, run up and down, making sure that things get fixed within the party in the constituency. So the delegates see me as one of them. I am not somebody who is coming from somewhere to seek their mandate, but I am coming from among them, asking them to support one of their own who understands them, who knows their plight, who understands the work they do, knows the sacrifices they make for the party, and is asking for them to back her, to send her to parliament so that she can also go and advocate for a portion of the national cake for them. Aside this, as I said, we need somebody who is saleable in December or November if the date gets changed.
Someone who can be sold by the party. Do you think Sylvester Tete can be sold?
Well, I believe once he's the MP, he has ever been sold and bought. But the question
that's
is...
interesting.
Yes,
he's been sold and bought.
And bought. Right. But the question is, are the people ready to buy him again? That is what we need to ask ourselves.
What do you think?
For me, I believe the people are calling for a change. And so we must give them the change they are calling for. The people who are voting on Saturday are only 1,140 people. Right. But we have more than 100,000, about 109,000 registered voters within our constituency. These people are the people who will decide who becomes the next MP. So the question the delegates need to ask themselves is, if we send Honorable Sylvester again, will the people accept him? I believe that the people may not accept him because they've given us the signs that they want a change.
What are these signs?
For the first time in the constituency, the drivers have come together to demonstrate against the bad state of roads and other things within the constituency. So they have given us the signal that they are not happy with the current leadership and they are asking us to change. And so if we do not change, if we do not listen to them, we run the risk of losing the seat. And that is what we need to guard against, to ensure that we do not lose the seat, but we rather retain the seat. So when I go around, I tell them, BNA, it's time to change to retain the seat. And so I always tell people, any leader you bring into office will have something to do for the people. But the question is, will the people be satisfied with the person's performance? Right. Sometimes when you promise watermelons and you deliver oranges, the people may not be happy. But when you have not promised an orange and you deliver an orange, or you promise a lime, but you deliver an orange, the people may be happy with you. So sometimes it's a matter of how you presented your case to the people. It's a matter of the kind of things you promised and whether you were able to deliver on those promises. So you may have done something, you may have done some works, but the people will compare what you said to what you have done. And if they don't match up, then there will be an issue. I believe that is the problem the current MP is facing, and we all need to help so that we don't send him again to the people for them to venge their anger on him, and for that reason cause us to lose the seat. So it's important that we change so that we present a candidate the people will buy, the people will be comfortable voting for, so that we are able to retain the seat in December 2024.
You mentioned the candidate that is saleable, one who can be sold. I think the final bit I'll ask you for now, before we get into the papers, is I hear MPs making lots of promises, sometimes outlandish promises, sometimes promises that if you can read the room, if you can read between the lines, you can tell are not really promises that will be kept. But one thing I found out, and being a lawyer, I'm sure you're fully aware that what the 1992 Constitution says a member of Parliament should do versus what MPs actually do are disproportionate. They are moving in some way in differing directions. Because yes, members of Parliament are fundamentally lawmakers, and that's it. But now you are doing things that likely DCs, MCs, even assembly people should do, because our systems are not working properly. So you've said, on promises, maybe Sylvester Tete and the other MPs before him have made their promises, some which have not been kept, for which reason people may be dissatisfied, per what you're saying. But what promises are you making, and can they be kept? That's my final bit to you before we swing into the papers.
Yes, what you've said is true. The people demand more than the MPs originally slated to do.
Originally assigned rules.
Exactly. Right. And the MPs too have made it possible for the people to demand more from them because they promise heaven on earth.
Are you not doing so?
Oh, no.
Because the trend is that if you don't, you lose.
I've only promised things that are achievable.
Like which ones?
Well, I've termed my vision the turnaround agenda for BNA, and it hinges on 5 pillars. First, leadership. Second, business and economic development. Third, people development. Fourth, infrastructural development. And fifth, welfare. I want to change the face of leadership within the constituency. I want to bring on board honest leadership, accessible leadership. You know, honesty in leadership is very important. As we said, you promise what you can do. You do not say what you cannot do. Some people think politics is about tricks, it's about deceit. But I have a different view. Politics is what you make it. If you want to make it look good, you can make it look good. And so you go and be honest enough to tell the people, this is what I'm able to do, this is what I'm not able to do. And so I have told them that I want to be a leader they can assess. Accessible leadership is very important. People complain once they vote for their MPs, they don't see them again until the next election.
Which is true.
Well,
on many counts.
Well,
the number of people who have told me that story. Just yesterday, I was somewhere and that conversation came up. Oh, what dear, Tumame, what Toman sitting away bus. You call MP has changed her line or his line. You go call tire.
So that's the problem, and that's why I say I will be an accessible leader to the people. I live among them. I have my home there, permanent residence there. They come to me all the time because, as I said, I'm one of them. So I'm accessible to them. I return their calls, I receive their calls and all of that. That is the kind of leader we want. We're also looking at business and economic development. You know, we form part of the govt municipality, and within the municipality, you have about 57% of people within the service and trading industry. These are people who need capital to expand their businesses. I want to make it my priority to team up with institutions that can help with credits and can help with grants. It doesn't have to come from my pocket. All I need to do is to mobilize people, engage the institutions that are able to do this, and bring them on board to help our people. And interestingly, some of our people come, they don't ask for free money. They ask for, credits to be able to build their businesses. And I believe building people to make them independent. If they are independent, if you teach them how to fish instead of giving them fish to eat, when they are hungry, they will take up their nets and go to sea and fish for themselves. So I intend to help people, help them with credits and grants so that they will be able to establish their businesses, become independent. They'll be able to support their wards when they are going to school. They'll be able to pay their own hospital bills, and then the pressure they put on you as MP will reduce. When you talk of people development, I'm looking at three things. Skills training, looking at educational support. I'm also looking at job placement support. Skills training, thankfully, I've come up with something we call the Obatampa project within the constituency, where I've trained close to 1,000 people for free in various skills sets. And interestingly, the Drivers Association at Galilea, one of the electoral areas, sent a delegation to me. They want to participate in the project, but they want a specialized training in how to rear snails. And that was not part of my models. So they came and said that we want to learn this. And that gave me a lot of motivation because I realized that the people...
So you're noticing it's having an impact.
Exactly. It's having an impact. And those are the things I'll continue to do. I'll institute what we call the MP's scholarship scheme. Brilliant but needy students, those who need full
MP scholarship scheme.
Yes.
You're not the MP yet, but you've instituted it.
When I get there, when I get the nod, I will institute it. And these are things I should be able to do. Already I'm doing them. I support people for school. People come to me for school fees and all that. So when I become the MP, it's not something which is difficult for me to do. And as I said, the skills training set, I'm not the MP, but I train people for free. So if I become the MP, it's something I'll continue to do. Okay. And all these things are doable. And then helping people to get jobs. I intend to set up the job center, put up a job placement team. What they will do is to build up a database of the skill sets, the talents, the educational backgrounds of the people. And then, when you go through these papers, you may see one or two job advertisements there. But how many of our people buy the papers and are able to see these? So what the job placement team would do is to comb through the dailies.
So basically disseminate
exactly, and yes, even help match job seekers to job opportunities. When you get the opportunity, they can even sit you down and coach you on how to attend your interviews and all those things.
Okay.
I believe these things are doable, and these are the kind of things I'm going to do. Also come up with welfare issues for the people. There are times people go into emergency situations, they need emergency support, emergency help. There must be a fund available for them to access to address some of these emergency situations. So I believe these are the things I'm telling them, these are the things I'm promising, and I believe they are doable and workable. Most importantly, I seek to consolidate.
If you could just wrap on that point so we move on to the papers, but you go ahead.
I seek to consolidate the support base of the party within the constituency. And how do I do this? You know, we've come from situations where we go to the polls and we get 0 for MPP within the constituency to where we now get hundreds and thousands of votes. It's taking the effort of our forebearers within the constituency to have brought us this far. And some of these people are aged, they are in the room, some of them are sick. And I believe that when we bring them on board, see the kind of help we can give them, or the kind of help we can give their children or their children's children, it will serve as a motivation for other people and make the party attractive to them. That if you join the MPP and you serve well and you are on retirement or you are aged, weak and cannot work, the party will extend a helping hand to you so others could be invited to join us. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Let's get into the papers now. At the tail end, I'll come to you with a few more questions on your candidacy. The Daily Graphic, no, these aren't our black stars. Pictured there, a lady with her hands on her head in typical morning fashion, if you like. And the disappointment on the face of our Black Stars, a Black Stars fan. Then there's on the back page, Chris Hughton in line of fire. That story also there, tied to the debacle of the Black Stars. And as we know it now, the executive committee has taken the decision to dissolve the technical team of the Black Stars, and that is from the GFA. Salah's AFCON journey hangs in the balance, and that is also there. So let's get into the papers now. The Daily Graphic. The signs were evident for long, but the depth of sinking of this Black Stars is unimaginable. The 2-2 draw with Mozambique last Tuesday in their final Group B clash at the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations was only a nail that confirmed the rundown pedigree of Africa's once brightest football light. That Ghana failed to make it from a group that included Mozambique and Cape Verde is already an embarrassing story to tell, but to finish in the manner of the dreadful collapse against Mozambique and suffer a second straight group stage exit at the AFCON is a shameful reality of a diseased football nation. So that is it. Some have said, quote, they played with no motivation, no anger, and no communication. They played like they were just there for fun. Now on the back page, Ghana coach Chris Hughton has come under fire again, and his job appears to be on the line after his team's participation at the Africa Cup of Nations. Of course, we know that now, but that statement purportedly from the GFA, he, together with the technical team, the rest of the technical team have been ousted. Are you an avid follower of football?
Not really, but I take interest in finding out what is happening around the world of football.
How do you feel about the Black Stars and the AFCON and everything in between?
Well, I believe the Black Stars are exiting.
They have exited.
Well,
thanks to Cameroon yesterday winning.
That is very unfortunate. You know, football is one thing that brings us all together as a people. It's the one major thing that unites us as Ghanaians. When Black Stars are playing, everybody supports. We all come together and push the agenda of the national team. And so it looks like we've come from a state of grace to grass. I believe we've won the African Cup of Nations a couple of times. So anytime Black Stars, yes, anytime the stars are appearing, people support them. Even other nations support us because they believe that we are one of the forces to reckon with when it comes to football in West Africa. And so to see them exit from the group stage is very unfortunate. I believe the 3 games they played, we drew only 1 and lost 2.
We drew 2 and lost 1.
We drew 2 and lost 1 instead. Good. So we could have done better. I watched excerpts of some of these games, about 2 of them, and I realized that those ones we drew, anytime we scored, we were quick to concede. And so I found a bit of a problem with our defense and our ability to protect the goal post. And I think that it's one area we need to work seriously on. If you looked at the synergy within the players, it looks like they need to play together some more. They need to be able to communicate.
The synergy needs to be there.
Exactly. And so I believe that it looks like we always make ad hoc arrangements for the team. You call this one from there, you call that one from there. I believe we need to put them together for longer time, make them practice together for longer times, so that when they go out to play, they will play together as a team. You didn't see much of that in the games they played, and I believe it's very unfortunate.
Right.
And a lot of people are heartbroken to see them exit this early.
Right.
And so I believe that the management team should find a way of strengthening the team so that anytime we go for such international tournaments, we perform better than we have done in this.
Another comment that is coming through, I mean, I see Bendochi Malo, for example, saying, "Dear Ghana, please stop the insults. This young man, Andre Dedeyayu, and his brother Jordan, together with their famous father Abedi, have given more to Ghana than they've taken away. Be angry, but do not sin." And it goes on and on. We shall overcome. We can overcome. We must overcome. It has 1.1K likes, so that tells you something. Ghanaians tend to, the players did this and the players did that. I agree, but you've never been on the pitch. Sometimes it's easy when you are not on the pitch. I also be about dame. Encounter they say when you are there you may not see it. But the other angle is, I mean, it's a pretty complex problem. Do the coaches have a free hand? What is the influence of money in our sports? In fact, even politics in our sports, NDC and MPP, yes, it is there. It is there, even in our football. And do the coaches have a free hand? Or is it that at some point a list is given, SMSC must play, this one must not play, and all of that? And do we make it really worth their while? The last time I was speaking to a football administrator who said he was on a flight with one of these players, and the player was basically going like, baby, and we know the baby, the people we are referring to, will benefit from them. All these, together with the code system that has died in the country, I mean, the Odate Lamtes and the, what's his name? This gentleman, he had spindly legs, pretty tall. I'll remember. Is it Malam or something? I'll try and remember. I mean, back in our glory days, even in the youth tournaments, look at what fed the system. But now we don't have all of that. Until we remedy these, I don't feel we're going anywhere. It's not about a ball hitting Dedeyayu's hand. He couldn't have avoided it. We got a similar goal in that same match. It's about the entire thing not working. But anyway, let's get into other stories. On the international front, U.S. still committed to Africa. That's according to Anthony Blinken. He's Secretary of State. And then again, the Pentagon has no more money for Ukraine. For the first time since Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin established the international group to support Ukraine in April 2022, the United States will host the monthly gathering of about 50 countries out of money, unable to send the ammunition and missiles that Ukraine needs to fend off Russia. You can get more details of that story. But that's it for the Daily Graphic. Let's check out what you have in the Finder newspaper.
The Finder,
so with the headlines first.
The Finder has IMF's 15% inflation for 2024 unrealistic, as revenue enhancement measures fuels price build. That's from Professor Lord Mensah.
So maybe you could take the headlines, all the headlines,
very well
before you get into any one of those.
TUC kicks against 15% VAT on electricity, and then withdraw VAT on electricity now. TUC demands. That's from the Daily Searchlight. And then the Ghanaian Times also has a similar story. And then the Finder has the one from IMF. The
new
15%. Exactly.
Okay. So which stories are you taking?
Let me look at the TUC stance against the 15% VAT on electricity. And the story is on page 9.
Page 9.
Yes. The Trade Union Congress has asked the government to withdraw the value-added tax on electricity on residential customers within 7 days. We are giving government up to January 31, 2024 to withdraw the letter. If by that time the Minister of Finance has not given the directive to Electricity Company of Ghana and Northern Electricity Distribution Company to stop the implementation of VAT on residential customers, we will advise ourselves. So virtually the TUC is sending a warning to government, withdraw the VAT on electricity for residential consumers, or they advise themselves.
How do you feel about that situation? Of course, Lifeline consumers, it's practically someone who is using about maybe 2 bulbs, and you can't add a fridge. If you add a fridge, you're out. If you have even a television set, per what I know, so it means you are using the bare bones. And how many people nowadays are using that? Which means that very few people are in the Lifeline market or in the Lifeline bracket, because it has been hiked. Even the consumption has been hiked down a bit. I don't know what you make of that, especially in these times. Inflation, cost of living, fuel prices, while it may have dropped from the 21 zone up to 23 for diesel, but it's still pretty high. What do you make of this? Is it a valid call from where you sit?
Yes, I think it's a valid call. You know, electricity is a basic amenity. It's not a luxury item. It's a fundamental need that everybody needs to have. And so making it expensive to access is something we always need to be careful of. I think the TUC's call is in the right direction. I believe the Ministry of Finance should be able to look at this. 15% VAT on domestic consumers, I believe, could be on the high side. It's either it's reduced or even taken off altogether. That's not to underrate or underscore the importance of VAT or the importance of tax. In developed countries, they rely largely on tax to develop their countries. And so we are not saying that taxing people is not good, but I believe taxing people on basic amenities is what the TUC is concerned about, and
I mean,
what I am tempted to agree with.
Taxes, everywhere taxes are collected, but when you tax people into the ground, there'll probably be nothing left to tax.
That's where the issue is. So I think I'll join voice with the TUC in making a passionate appeal on the Ministry of Finance to see what they can do about this, so that life becomes more bearable for our people. Okay. There are people who can afford it, but it's not everybody who can, so it should be looked at.
Even currently, I mean, when I purchase credits for my meter and the few gadgets I use, when I look at the consumption rate and how quickly the money is done, and the advice in the body, it's...
I have a friend who bought credit, and after a few days or so, it got used up, and he was asking whether there was a problem with the system.
There's no problem with your meter. It is what it is.
So I think that it should be looked at. That's one area.
Can we check out the IMF's projection in the new finder? IMF's 15% inflation for 2024, unrealistic. Maybe you could look at Professor Lord Mensah's bit quickly.
That's on page 2.
Okay.
Page 2. And then respected figure in finance and a professor at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Lord Mensah, has voiced skepticism about the International Monetary Fund's recent projection of a 15% end-of-year inflation figure. The IMF forecasted a gradual decline to 8% in 2025. In an interview with the New Finder, Professor Mensah expressed his reservations, deeming the 15% year-end inflation prediction as unrealistic. He pointed to certain factors that, in his view, would hinder the realization of the IMF's projections. According to Professor Mensah, there are factors that will impede the realization of what the IMF has predicted. He stated that the pass-through effect of the revenue enhancement measures within the IMF program itself had a way of resulting into a price build. If you introduce taxes, the businessman will not absorb the tax. It will come through price increase to the consumer, so that at the end of the day, it is a way of increasing prices on the market, which will become inflationary. Professor Mensah explained. He explained further that the resumption of the country's debt servicing could force the exchange rate into levels that will trigger inflation, any pressures, because ours is import-driven economy, and once the dollar rises, obviously prices of imported products, including petrol, go up, which will feed into other things.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So interesting dynamics there. Any quick take on that?
Yes. So the IMF is giving us a projection, and then the experts are passing their comments on it. They say it is unrealistic based on certain factors. We have an import-driven economy, and so issues of inflation can go up and down depending on prices on the market, and especially when there are price increases. The businessman, definitely they will not absorb it. No businessman wants to lose profits because of tax. The tendency to pass it on to the consumer is there, and when it is passed on, these things push inflation. And so he believes that because of the nature of our economy and the way we do things here, that projection is unrealistic. And I believe he has a point there.
Okay. Let's get into some other stories very quickly. The Daily Guide newspaper. Judgment Day for coup plotters and coup in inverted commas. We know those who have been mired in this, and some of the names that come to mind. And now the 9, made up of civilians, junior and senior military personnel, as well as a senior police officer, are before the court on charges of conspiracy and abetment of crime and a substantive charge of high treason. This case has been going on forever. I don't know when we'll see some end to it, this group. And this was the group also that included Dr. McPalm, who lost his life a while ago. EC proposes November for elections. Now, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, G. Mensah, has advocated moving the presidential and parliamentary elections from December to November. She also wants the election day to be designated as a national holiday as part of the proposals for the change in timetable for the national elections. The EC boss made the proposals during the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting held on Monday, January 22, 2024. Then Nam1 pulled gun on us, that's according to a witness, and constituents highly rate Stephen Amwa. There's also man kills 3-week-old baby for rituals. Very, very, very sad situation.
Pathetic.
So here's what I'm going to run by you, 2 or 3 quick things. Constituents highly rate Stephen Amwa. I mean, this you can choose to stay away from. There is the Inshiaeso Constituency Development Initiative, and they conducted this survey. What I find interesting about it is the fact that while he's being rated highly here, 48.9% of respondents, mostly youth, assessed his performance as very good, with 21.3% rating it as excellent. Yet only yesterday we were looking at Global Info Analytics and their survey, which points to the fact that in terms of his approval rating, for those who say they will vote for him, those who were spoken to were about 450. You would notice that 21% said they would, and then a certain Kennedy Kwesi Kankam has 5%, George Odum 25%. Now those who are undecided, a whopping 29%, and those undisclosed 44%. So which one will pan out? This one by Global Info Analytics, or the one conducted by the Inshiaeso Constituency Development Initiative? Only time will tell. But then EC proposes November for elections. You've just heard that story. What do you make of it? The SDA recently called for the date to be changed because it falls on their Sabbath. I've expressed my thoughts on this already, but what do you make of it? And shifting it to November, will that solve the problem? What if it falls on a Saturday or Sunday in those days as well? What happens?
That's a big issue. For me, the call by the SDA Church, I am motivated by that call because we have some religious sects that do not even see relevance in voting at all. So if you have a church that says we do not want to be disenfranchised, I'm moved by that call because they want to be patriotic. They want to, get involved in the choosing of leaders for our country. And so when they feel that there is something that will prevent them from exercising their right to vote, they need to bring it up for discussion and for redress if possible. And so I will congratulate the church for that move. But I believe there are a lot of issues. One of it is what you have said. What if it's changed to November? As the years go by and the months and the days evolve, you can have a December 7th or a November 7th falling on a Monday, a Sunday, or a Saturday. Right. These issues could come up time and again. And would we go back any time to review our laws to be able to make time for such sects or religious sects to be able to vote? But I believe that we still need to pay some attention to that call. Is it possible for us to give a range of days within which we could hold the election so that when it happens to fall on a day which is not favorable to the people, we can immediately move to exactly. Right. So we need to consider that and give the EC some leeway to be able to make necessary arrangements when we are faced with such challenges. But I believe the call will invite Parliament to look at legislative reforms. And I'm asking myself, would they be able to get the numbers, the votes they need in Parliament to be able to pass this through? But I believe we need to pay attention to what they've asked for.
The Ghanaian publisher, that's how I wrap. Afenyo Markin donates 300 bunk beds to Winnie Sek. If the numbers were containable, if I may put it that way, and if we were doing the right thing, probably MPs wouldn't have to do that. Etiwa East holds Abana in high esteem, and Tampuli confirmed as Gushegu NPP parliamentary candidate. I just want you, in less than a minute, if you can manage, how are you funding your campaign? How are you bankrolling your campaign? What is your final message to your delegates? In 1 minute, if you can squeeze it in.
Well, thank you very much. My final message to...
I don't want you to move away from funding. How are you funding your campaign?
Well, basically, one thing I've learned is you can't go into election without having personally prepared for it. In 2018, I contested at the national level. I was one of the aspirants for the national first vice chair position of the party. And when I finished that election, I realized that you can't go into an election banking your hopes on people to finance you.
Because of time, I want you to go straight to the
People may support you, but you need to.
Are you getting funding from elsewhere? Are people supporting you financially?
Well, basically, I'm funding everything together with support from my husband and family.
Okay, so for now, it is basically a family affair.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
20 seconds, message to your delegates.
So, the good people of BNA, Saturday we are voting. Lawyer Vida, I am 3 on the ballot. We need a change. It's all about retaining the seat for the party. We've all worked so hard. This is a seat that the NDC has sat on before, and so we need to make sure that it doesn't go back to them. We need to be able to listen to the larger electorates, what they are asking for. They are asking for change, and so a change we must give them. And if we are giving them a change, we need to change and present a candidate who is saleable and who is marketable, a candidate they can identify with, a candidate who has been around for a long time and has served them for a long time, a candidate they can relate with. And I believe that candidate is myself. Vote number 3, vote for Lawyer Vida, vote for change.
Thank you.
DNA, we are changing to retain the seat. Thank you so much.
And that is Vida Ajapum Echampon. She is the MPP's parliamentary candidate, hopeful for Botiano, English, Amanfro constituency. We'll be heading into sports shortly, but this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you prostate screening if you're a man and fertility screening if you're a woman, all for free. Just reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siamanzaba. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next.
Welcome to the sports segment on the AM show. My name is Harun Amwarak. We start with a big story where the Ghana Football Association has sacked coach Chris Hughton after the Black Stars group stage exit from the Africa Cup of Nations. Remember, Ghana finished on 2 points in Group B after 2 draws and 1 defeat. A statement by the FA says Chris Hughton has been relieved of his duties with immediate effect. The Executive Council has also taken a decision to dissolve the technical team of the Black Stars. Hughton was appointed in February last year, replacing Otuado, who stepped down from the 2022 World Cup. The 65-year-old has won 4 games for Ghana out of 13 and suffered 4 losses. That's your sports on the AM show. My name is Harun Mubarak. The show continues right after this.
Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to get into our big stories. And first off, we're talking about money and our economy. Of course, that second tranche of $600 million released by the IMF to Ghana. And there's even more to expect by way of the World Bank's stabilization or stability fund. But as we get into the discussion, we're going to be hosting some stalwarts who are going to be walking us through what all of this means or ought to mean for our economy. Of course, we've heard from Professor Lord Mensah on what this could mean. The likes of Franklin Kujo of Imani Africa compared famously or infamously this bit from the IMF to giving whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. But what is the real situation? What will this do to our economy? Starting off the conversation, we have Isaac Kofi Ajay. He's our in-house data and research analyst. He joins the conversation. Kofi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, man.
Good to have you join the conversation. So, the money, from what we hear, has hit the central bank's account. What is the tail of the tape? What can you share with us on the back of that?
Well, so definitely, you're right. The money has hit Bank of Ghana's account. $600 million in the accounts of Bank of Ghana. It did not come alone. It came with additional $300 million from the World Bank. And we are also expecting, or we are projected to receive some $44 million also from the African Development Bank. So in total, we are expecting somewhere around, $1 billion from all other sources. From all sources combined, so 600 million from the IMF, 300 million from the World Bank, 44 million from the African Development Bank, and also additional $200 million from the World Bank, which will specifically be used for the recapitalization of the banks or to stabilize the banks that actually participated in the domestic debt exchange program. And so on your screens right now, we know we were scheduled to receive about some $1.2 billion in 2023 last year. But because we could not meet all the conditions in 2023, we couldn't get that amount. But thankfully, or let me say, just like the finance minister would say, that it's been by grace that we've been able to sail through this within a very short period of time, according to them. We've been able to get additional $600 million. What will this money be used for? This money will go into budgetary support for the year 2024. The $300 million coming from the World Bank will also be used to support the economy. We also have to receive some $44 million from the African Development Bank. And just like I said, $200 million additional funds coming from the World Bank that will also be used for, the bank recapitalization. We know that some of the banks have, hinted that they are going to receive some, amount of money for recapitalization. Most of them are complaining because the money that they are supposed to give to them, which is supposed to help them solve their solvency issues, are being issued in the form of bonds, and some of them were expecting a certain significant percentage of cash. But we understand that most of the banks, the entire money they are receiving or support they are receiving comes in the form of banks, which many expect.
Hello, Kofi. Hello, Kofi. Can you hear me, Isaac Kofi Ajay? All right, so Isaac Kofi Ajay was walking us through those dynamics there. As of what we know now, $600 million received from the IMF, a further $300 million from the World Bank. Kofi, are you back with us? then 44 million from the African Development Bank, and then 200 million, as we have said, for recapitalization later to be disbursed to us from the World Bank. So all of those, over $1 billion. Now, the last $200 million that I spoke of will be specifically for recapitalizing the local banks involved in the domestic debt exchange program. Kofi, can you hear me? All right, so we shall move on to our guests and bring them in. Those who will be joining the conversation, Dr. Josh Bamfo. He's an economist and partner at Anderson, Nigeria. We also have Professor Ebo Turkson, economist with the University of Ghana, Legon, and Dr. Saad Idrisu, economist, Louisiana Economic Development. But before we get to them, Kofi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ben.
All right, so please take over from where you left off.
Yes, so I was talking about the monies received. You mentioned it's about $1.15 billion that we expect to receive some already. But the issue has to do with balance of payments, gap for between 2024 and 2027, just like you showed on the screen, averaging about $3 billion in the years to come. And the problem ahead is that you estimate your balance of payments gap around $12.6 billion. Together, you are receiving some significant amount from the IMF and the World Bank, but you have a significant portion also being left out, and you're not getting the financing from it, and you have to explain this through the external debt restructuring. And so going forward, you look at the monies that we received so far, they were all tied to some conditions that we had to meet. When Stefan was asked about the next tranche or disbursement, which would be the third one, he said we should be expecting the second review somewhere April, May, and expect that if you're able to meet all the conditions, we should be receiving additional $350 million from the IMF, which will also trigger other disbursement from other sources. And so then going into 2025, it is estimated that we are probably estimating that we will be ending 2024 with an inflation around 15%. Tax to GDP ratio is expected to increase, and other indicators of the economy. But what has the 600 million really done for the economy? We've been tracking what it has, the impact on the cedi depreciation that we realized in 2022 when we did not have such support. We saw that the cedi in a whole year depreciated by some 54%. But in 2023, when we were able to get a first tranche in May, the entire 2023, we saw the cedi depreciating by some 25%. And so that was significant. We've seen inflation also coming down, but most experts have explained that probably it's not because of any specific measures or policies, but just because the CPI figures are in our favor. And so if we really want to tackle single-digit inflation, this is the time, because the figures are in our favor, that even if we do not do anything at all, because the denominators or the figures being used to calculate the CPIs are currently in the favor of the country, and we can achieve most of the inflation target that we've set for ourselves. So 600 million in, 300 million will come from the World Bank, and we expect additional funds from other sources like the African Development Bank.
All right. Thank you for those details, Isaac Kofi. Thank you for walking us through those. Let me now get to the rest of our guests who are joining this conversation. Dr. Josh Bamfo, economist and partner at Anderson, Nigeria. Then there's Professor Ebo Turkson, economist, University of Ghana, Legon, together with Dr. Saad Idrisu, economist, Louisiana Economic Development. Gentlemen, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
All right. So let me start with you, Dr. Saad Idrisu. We've come pretty far, as some will say, and it is clear that the 600 million that we received made some impact. The question is, how much of an impact do you feel it made? The first tranche of $600 million, even before we get into the second tranche and what it bodes for our economy. So the first tranche of $600 million, gentlemen, what impact do you feel it has had so far? I'll start with you, Dr. Saad Idrisu.
Good morning again, and good morning to all your listeners. And well, Ghana, you could say that currently the government is probably in a cocoa season with regards to all the funds that are coming in from the IMF and the World Bank. And when the government is in such a position, then it puts more pressure on we as citizens to make sure that we can focus on the government rather than just letting it to do whatever it kind of wants. And basically, if you're going back to look at what the IMF itself said for bringing in the second payment, the IMF kind of believed that their first payment helped to bring about growth in the economy, which is a bit doubtful in the sense that probably, the expected growth that the IMF even projected, Ghana hasn't been able to meet it for the 2023 growth. And again, if you look at inflation, as Isaac rightly said, inflation has decreased, but not necessarily because of the first 600 million, but just due to the CPI calculation that the Statistical Service has employed. Again, if you look at the International Reserve Fund, there's been a bit of an increase in that. But basically, I would say that, the question I would like to ask is that as a country, have we really felt the first 600 million? Aside what the government has put on paper to the IMF to be able to get the second payment? Because I was expecting that at least, even with the first 600 that came in, part of it could have gone to the private sector development, helping these small-scale businesses. But it seems as we speak right now, Ghanaian businesses haven't felt even the first impact of the 600 million. So that is why I'm saying that at least for this second tranche payment that is coming in, it is a duty on every Ghanaian, it is a duty on the media, it is a duty on Parliament itself, civil society organizations, and all that are concerned in the economy to make sure that we police the government enough to be able to put the money to judicious use. Because the IMF has said that they just look at the books, they just look at whatever that you write to them on paper, but how you actually spend the money, believe me, to a larger extent, is not the concern of the IMF money. And we all, the IMF as an organization.
Are you suggesting that there are lapses in terms of follow-up? So the IMF, it depends on the facts and figures, maybe not so factual sometimes, but the figures you present to them, they act on that, and how you expend the money really is not their concern. I thought they were concerned about how it was expended.
Yes, basically that is how the IMF operates, and that is why Ghana, I would say that we are back to the IMF for the 17th time. Because if IMF had really gone dollar by dollar to see what the money was used for, I don't think Ghana will be heading back again for the 17th time.
But are you suggesting that we are not deserving of receiving the second tranche?
That is far from what I'm saying. Ghana is deserving in the second tranche because at least we need something to be able to sustain the economy. But the IMF, like I said, is such that whatever you put on your paper, definitely they will go by that. And again, I'm making this reference with regards to the situation we saw when the COVID funds were released during the COVID era. Years down the lane, we saw how parliamentary candidates came out within the northern region to speak on how government disbursed the COVID funds to them to do campaign. But the COVID funds itself had a purpose that government was supposed to use it for. But there was some form of diversion years down the lane. So that is why I'm saying that is how these multilateral, organizations and international organizations work. They don't go dollar to dollar to investigate you to see how you're spending the money. But it is left on the country itself, police the government to make sure that all the needed purposes that are spelled out, the government actually commits it to that. That is the whole point. So if we are going to get the needed benefits from this second 600 million, then it will require all of us our attention. It will require us to be able to police the government. It will require us to be able to ask the needed questions from the Finance Ministry, from the Bank of Ghana, even if it involves using the RTI bill.
All right. Thank you very much for those initial comments. I'll come to you, Dr. Bamfo, on that same point. What do you feel the $600 million we got initially have done for the economy so far?
All right. Thank you, Ben, and thanks for the opportunity to share my views. We need to be very mindful of, the purpose of that first tranche. It was very clear that one of our biggest issues going to the IMF was the balance of payment challenges that we were facing. In other words, as an economy, we're importing more in terms of goods, services, and capital, way more than what we're exporting when you look at the same items, which means that that huge deficit has to be funded with some forex, because if you're importing, you pay with foreign exchange. And because we were very low in terms of our international external reserves, there was a need for us to get some support. In the past, what we have been doing is in the short term, you go to the international private investor community to borrow forex, through Eurobonds. But over time, after our debt situation appeared to be getting out of hand, and our credit rating, sovereign credit rating was downgraded, we couldn't get access to such source of forex. So clearly, we needed the support of the IMF, and that's the reason why we reluctantly went to the IMF. So the first tranche was very clearly earmarked, to deal with the balance of payment issues. And in terms of the obvious result, you have to look at the performance of the exchange rate. And based on the report that your colleague just presented, the exchange rate has performed relatively much better since May last year compared to prior to going to the IMF. So clearly, there are some significant immediate results in terms of what the funds were actually earmarked for. That is the first tranche. And what is interesting is that...
But would you say that is sufficient? Because even as you talk about the exchange rate and the quotient by which the cedi depreciated, the dollar is still hovering around 12.7 in some instances, some even higher if you're making purchases. The pound, the last time I checked, was around 15 cedis I mean, if you look at the averages, I do know that the dollar hit 16 cedis at some point when things were really bad. But would you say it has achieved enough in terms of the exchange rate?
I think so. I mean, I happen to practice in Nigeria, and if you look at what is happening to the foreign exchange market in Nigeria, it's been unsustainable in recent months since the current government administration took over. So clearly, yes, it's not fully arrested, the depreciation of the Ghana cedi against hard currencies such as the USD and the pound. However, the rate of depreciation has actually curtailed, and that is very significant, and that is hopeful. Now, what we then need to look at is the second tranche is now targeted as something a bit different. A number of capital projects that are necessary to create an enabling environment for investments, businesses to thrive have actually stalled because we didn't have the funds to actually continue some of these projects, or the lenders actually had to hold off until they could really assess whether the IMF program, has been successful. So what I believe the second tranche will actually do is to, enable government to continue on some of these capital projects. We've seen bridges that have commenced but have stalled. We've seen roads that have commenced but have stalled. A number of capital projects that are necessary for foreign direct investment and domestic direct investment to actually spring up. So for me, if you look at the assessment of the first tranche, based on what was earmarked for, I think there's some kind of significant improvement or success. And if you look at what the second one is also earmarked for, I think it's in the right direction and to help boost the economy after we've struggled since COVID-19, where GDP growth rate actually slowed down compared to the first 3 years of the current administration, where GDP growth rate averaged around 7%. And we actually at some point had inflation rate a single digit during those first 3 years prior to COVID-19. In fact, there were 2 years, I think 2017-18, where we had inflation rate around 7.2%.
And I'm sure as an economist, you would also know that it was right on the tail of an IMF program and that we were seeing the boons or the benefits of that IMF program, which is why some people don't even allude that to any success, because it was just on the end of one IMF program. The benefits of it, once those benefits vaporized, then we were back on the ropes again. Is that not the case?
No, that is a fair argument to make. But, for those who have experience governing this country, we've seen John Mahama allude to the fact that if he should come into power, he will need some honeymoon to get things right. I don't think that it's easy to say that once you go to you come out of an IMF program, you need to experience consistent high economic growth rates.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But all the projections from economic think tanks and the rest alluded to the fact that things were going to get better around that time, which is why I'm merely saying that, can we necessarily allude that to any magic wand that was waved? Was it not bound to happen? The projections 2016 leading into 2017 and 2018 were similar to what we saw. Those were the projections, were they not?
Yeah, Ben, I fully agree. Projections will always remain projections. Actual can deviate from projections. And that's the reason why you'll be measured. Even if you meet your projections and those projections were kind of ambitious and you meet them, yes, it's a success story. The fact that you have a projection that you're going to grow 6% doesn't necessarily mean that you grew by 6%. If you're able to achieve that sustained high economic growth rate, you have to be commended for it. It cannot be a fluke. The same way during tough times, when they project, poor performance, and you're able to exceed that poor performance. Yes, you cannot actually say, because it was projected, we're going to grow around 2%, and we made 2%, we did well. There's still an expectation for you to actually do better than a low, projection. So for me, the fact that there was a projection that we're going to do better because we had come out of the IMF program in 2000, like we've gone into the IMF program in 2015, and we're successful, and we're able to end that particular bailout program in 2019, whilst having sustained high economic growth rate. Some credit has to go to the administration for seeing us through that particular period, And in the same vein, post-COVID, even though we can argue that there are external factors that were unanticipated that have led to the struggle of the economy, we still have taken the administration on and said, hey, we could have done better. So whether we are doing, there was an expectation of good performance and we met that, or there was an expectation of poor performance and we performed poorly, government is going to be held accountable either ways. So credit should be due when they do well. And we need to also be the ones being critical of them, because that's the reason why they're in power in the first place.
All right. I'll move to Professor Ebo-Turkson shortly, but just a brief one, Dr. Bamfo. So from where you sit, you don't agree with the former president when he says when he comes, Ghanaians should be patient with him. There should be a bit of a honeymoon. But essentially, you don't agree with him, right?
I don't. I mean, we happen to be in a crisis situation. We've gone for some support. We've seen the macroeconomic indicators start turning around. We've seen inflation rate going down, even though there's some kind of base effect. But at the end of the day, those contractionary monetary policies that the central bank, which is the BOJ, has implemented, are gaining some traction. So when you come in, you already have those, platforms laid down for you to take off. So now you think of it as an airplane. We are taxiing along the runway. Anybody that comes next year should be able to start taking it off. So it cannot be a case of honeymoon. If you say honeymoon, how long is that honeymoon going to be? And especially when you have only one term. So I really have concerns when I hear comments like that. If the current administration was able to take off in 2017, after going to the IMF in 2015, I don't think any government has an excuse for any form of honeymoon in 2025.
All right. Thank you. Let me bring in Professor Ebo-Turkson. He's an economist at the University of Ghana, Legon. Prof, thank you for joining us this morning via phone.
Thank you. Good morning to your listeners.
$600 million in the kitty. The central bank has confirmed receipt of that. We're expecting $300 million top up from the World Bank, $44 million from the African Development Bank, and with time, another $200 million from the World Bank for recapitalizing the banks that participated in the domestic debt exchange program. But even looking at the first $600 million we've got, it's a question I've posed to my two other guests. Do you feel we have reaped the proper benefits of the $600 million, inflation-wise, exchange rate-wise, and all the other dynamics? What's your reading?
Okay, so as for inflation, I mean, I listened to your earlier speaker. I mean, the tight monetary stance of the central bank has played a critical role in trying to tone down inflation expectations and also bring down inflation. So, the disinflation process, and so I will not say it is the $600 million that is going to lead us through that. So that is done, and that is part of the excessive story that we are enjoying now. This is recovery of the economy, and we cannot also say that the relative stability of the Ghana cedi right from February 2023 to now has partly played a role in the disinflation process. But more so, the central bank gold for reserves and gold for oil has ensured some stability in fuel prices, and that is also has factored into the inflation. Now, this 600 million will definitely add up to our reserves. It increases our reserves. It gives a signal that the central bank has enough reserves to cushion the cedi if we find any, temporary shock falls in terms of the market, in terms of the central bank going to the market to stabilize the currency. So, what is good for me for this money, apart from increasing our reserve, is the fact that it clearly gives a signal that Ghana is now on the right track. Certainly, we should be excited about it. I mean, we've gone through a lot. It's good it happened earlier for us. As other countries in Africa are now facing the phase that we faced a year ago. So, what we need to do, and this 600 million is supposed to support our expansion of the production capacity of the economy. So that is what we should do, because don't forget that the suspension of some of our interest payments is part of the reasons why we've enjoyed some stability. So the fiscal consolidation was because we were not making some interest payments out of the debt restructuring. But they are going to come up later on. So what is important for us is to be able to invest this money and expand the production capacity of the economy for us to be able to generate more revenue without necessarily introducing new taxes, and also to ensure that when it gets to the point where we begin to make good those interest payments, after the honeymoon that we're enjoying the fiscal space, we should have been in a position to deal with those issues about our debt without having to struggle.
Right.
It's important that we do the right investment. It's important that we, whatever fiscal space we are enjoying now, we put it to good use to increase our capacity to be able to service our debt when we begin to roll out our debt service payments after the debt restructuring.
I have two quick questions for you. So do you expect that this will lead to a further slump in the exchange rate? That is one. That the second tranche will actually lead to a further gain as far as our currency is concerned against the American greenback, against the British pound and all that. And then secondly, with the second tranche of the money, the over 1.1 billion that we're expecting from the different groupings that I've mentioned, the IMF, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, how do you see this impacting capital projects together with shoring up our banks? Because you know that the 200 million, one of those that will come from the World Bank is actually to help recapitalize those banks that participated in the DDEP. What's your reaction to these two?
I mean, the first one is that, of course, the strength of the cedi depends on other external factors that we have no control over. So that is something we should note, because, I mean, what is going on in the geopolitical divergences that are taking place on the global, political space, would also have an impact on the dollar and then the strength of our city. But so far as we hold all of those factors constant, then definitely when the central bank has an increase in its reserves, it gives the central bank that freedom to be able to pursue policies to stabilize the currency. And so it means that we should be assured that we'll enjoy some stability in the currency. Also, it should slow down on the speculative activity because people get out of the speculation. So while the funds are coming, there is that expectation that the central bank will cushion the CD, and therefore the expectation speculative activity come down and then the CD enjoys some stability. And of course, the good second question you ask is that do we expect that over 1.2 billion to have an impact in the economy? Yes, why not? I mean, if you have been observing, since the 4th of January, all road contractors who have stopped work, new road projects have been launched and all of that. It's as a result of the expectation of this budgetary support that is supposed to go into expanding the productive base of our economy. So I expect value for money. I expect that it falls into the plan that we have with the IMF for us to be able to invest in the productive base of the economy for us to be able to service that. I mean, the whole essence of debt restructuring to give you some fiscal space is to ensure that you buy some time to clean up the mess. And part of the clean up the mess is to ensure that we expand our economy to generate more revenue, to be able to be in a position to pay our debts later. So that is what I expect to happen. And don't forget that there's another third tranche that we have to go in for. And access to that third tranche is going to depend on how well we do from now to the time they come for another review. So, I mean, under the fund program, as has always been the case, we expect that things will be done in the right way for the Ghanaian economy to recover as soon as possible, as we've already started the recovery, and then get us to where we were before we slumped. So I expect that the proper things to be done, value for money contract. Being an election year, we don't go overboard to overspend. The fiscal consolidation effort that we are projecting, if we keep in line with it, we should be able to recover the economy even faster than we are projecting. Don't forget that it was projected that in 2023 Ghana was going to grow by 2.3%. It started 1.5, 1.8, and the fund has now pegged at 2.3. I know certainly that we will perform that at the end of 2023. So these are all the factors that give me some hope that the Ghanaian economy is on its path of recovery, and we should be excited about it, even though the government shouldn't derail those efforts with excessive spending in the election year.
Prof, just before you go, since you have to take leave of us, I just want to sneak this in before I come back to Dr. Bamfo and Dr. Saad Idrisu, because I'll have more time with them, a bit more time with them. One, what are your expectations in terms of government reining in spending in an electoral year? When the $600 million hit the central bank's account, Imani Africa's Franklin Cudjoe posted and suggested that this was like giving car keys and whiskey to teenage boys. In other words, quite a devastating cocktail in terms of spending. And he was asking government to rein in spending. That is one. Do you expect that? And two, Professor Lord Mensah, your colleague, has actually suggested that the IMF's 15% inflation projection for 2024 is unrealistic. And of course, they go on to project even a further decline to 8% in 2025. And he cites his reasons. Do you agree with him? Those two questions, and then I can let go of you, sir.
Okay, let me start with the second one. I don't agree for Professor. There is no basis for that expectation. I mean, we have outperformed the inflation. Ghana has outperformed the inflation target for 2023. The disinflation process that is going on will continue. As the central bank itself positions itself to maintain the tightness and to ensure that the disinflation process that is going on will continue. I mean, the 15% as at the end of 2024 is a target that can easily be achieved. But it all depends on the extent to which the government keeps to its expenditure, in terms of the fact that this 600 million is not free money that we are going for. It is part of the budgetary support to go into critical investment in the economy. And so far as that is done, there is nothing wrong if money is put into the economy to expand the productive base of the economy. That is investment. That is what we need to generate jobs. That is what is needed for the Ghanaian economy to grow. And if we do that, I'm very certain that whoever takes power in 2025, on the 7th of January, will have an economy that has recovered to a greater extent. That has all the ingredients for it to succeed 2025 going forward. So I do not subscribe also to Franklin Kujo's, even though I know where he's coming from. We are expecting that this government will do the right thing. And the money that has been given by the fund will go into the sectors that have been outlined in the budget for that support from the fund. And once we are able to invest in those critical areas, I suspect that we should be able to do well. As for the inflation, 15% target and 8% by 2025. If the external factors that come into play, as we speak, do not shake our resilience, I have a firm belief that those targets will be met. And of course, in all of these projections, we have no control what is happening in the Red Sea, its implications for shipments and the shipping costs and all of that, and the distraction of oil prices because of the conflict in the Middle East. So these are all factors that are beyond our control. But if all goes well, I do not expect that holding the external factors fixed will not be able to meet those targets. Ghana is certainly on the road to recovery. And whoever takes power in 2025 will have an economy that has started recovering, and we expect that Ghana will move on from there. Don't forget that that's exactly what happened in 2016, 2015, 2016. And if you recall, 2017 to 2019, Ghana was on the right road to building its resilience, but for COVID and other external factors that happened, we would not have gone through the crisis that we went through in 2022 up to somewhere at the beginning of 2023. So I do not agree with the two personalities that you mentioned. Yes.
Jackson, thank you for joining the conversation with us this morning. If you have a bit more time, I would encourage you to just wait so that you can give your parting shots after I bring in Dr. Bamfo and Dr. Saad Idrisu. But if you do have to go now, then I'll let go of you. Prof? Hello, Prof?
No, that's fine. I'll be waiting.
All right, Prof. Jackson, thank you. Thank you for holding. Let me come to you, Dr. Bamfo. So, in fact, Dr. Saad Idrisu, having listened to Professor Turkson with all the dynamics, what then would be your projections in terms of expenditure based on these sums of money that have come? What would be your expectations?
Well, my expectations are that government should be able to watch the spending, especially during an election year, with the IMF projection of inflation coming down to 50% by end of 2024 is an achievable target. But that will only depend on how much government spends this election year, because over the years we've had situations of government going beyond its projected spending just to be able to get some sympathy votes and all that from the electorates. But if government is able to go according to plan, then we should be able to achieve that particular inflation target. And again, I just want to quickly wade into this honeymoon period. I think it's been taken out of context, in my opinion, because if you notice whatever we've had over the past years, whenever there's a change of government, the new government always needs some time to be able to assess all the books before it even continues on to existing projects or even goes on to
I think the convention is about 100 days. I mean, some sort of grace period.
Days, exactly. 100 days doesn't mean that the president is taking the family to go to Dubai to spend honeymoon. No. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, it's been taken out of proportion. We've been doing it over and over and over. And that is what I'm just thinking that was the same thing that was being mentioned, because with an IMF program, definitely government needs time for the handed over news. Government needs proper time to be able to even, re-inspect the books and all that. If whatever prosecution that needs to be done, government needs time to be able to do all that. So most of the times, at least the first 100 days is what governments upon government usually take. And you could say that it's honeymoon. This is not the first time we are going to have it in the country.
Right.
But another thing I want to draw the
so maybe that could be your final point, so that I move on to Dr. Bamfo because of time.
Yes. It's not only the 600 million that we are expecting. Like I already put in place, we are expecting almost 1.something billion for this government.
Almost 1.2 billion.
Huge. 1.15 to 1.2 billion. That is something huge that every Ghanaian must be interested in. And even though frankly Kujo goes ahead with that sort of statement, to a certain extent you could believe what he's saying, but we all could prevent it from happening if we actually pay attention to what government is spending on. Because we've had, over the past period, whereby even the media cannot even assess what was put in the drafts from China. Up to now, we don't know what agreements was reached with China for the second tranche payment to even receive. That is something that every Ghanaian should have known. But the finance ministry have refused to share that information. Same way with this particular spending too. If they refuse to share how the spending goes, at least I expect that the media should be able to invoke the RTI bills to be able to fish out more, because we cannot leave government to be able to spend anyhow it wants. We will definitely deviate from our macroeconomic targets.
All right. Let me bring in Dr. Bamfo. Your take on saying.
All right. Thank you very much. I think on the inflation issue, yes, some might be of the view that 15% target by the end of this year would be a bit on the optimistic side. But as I reiterated earlier on, there are a number of factors that actually are in our benefit. The first being the fact that there's going to be a base effect. Last year we had very high, inflation rates, meaning that the average CPI was already high. So the growth rate is going to be much lower than the previous year. And that is a statistical issue. But by and large, what the central bank is doing in terms of contractional monetary policy, and the fact that we still are under the program and under the scrutiny of the IMF, and they are periodically reviewing what we are doing with the funds, I think that discipline, will make us more prudent and we'll be able to channel those funds to the productive sector, as Professor Ebotexin already alluded to. So I'm very optimistic, because you need to really understand what is going on across different countries, and you really appreciate the path that we find ourselves today. What we've gone through was a situation of biting the bullet, enduring some pain in the short term with the hope of getting some gain in the medium to long term. So yes, the government was criticized during the period where we're biting the bullet, and rightfully so. Right. And that same vein, we need to encourage them once we have a path to recovery. And if you look at the major macroeconomic indicators, the path we find ourselves is one trending towards a stability of the economy and some sustained economic growth, which we've experienced before. What makes me hopeful is that 2017, 18, 19, we were one of the 4 countries in sub-Saharan Africa that was the beacon of hope in terms of sustained economic growth rate that can actually transform an economy into one of a developed nation. Unfortunately, we had an exogenous shock that we didn't anticipate. And because of our debt situation, we couldn't handle it well. Now that we are creating some fiscal space, if we are prudent and spending in the areas that matter, that is in the productive sector, creating the enabling environment, having capital projects that will attract foreign direct investment and domestic investments, then the economic growth will get back to the pre-COVID era, 7%, 8%. That is when we can actually see the economy growing and creating the job opportunities that the teaming youth and the teaming can actually take advantage of.
Gentlemen, 30 seconds each, and then we have to go. That is a hard fixed 30 seconds, please. I'll start with you, Professor Turkson. 30 seconds, final words, please.
I think Ghana is certainly on the road to recovery. We just pray that the government will keep to its expenditure that we detailed in the budget. Whatever we are getting, the 1.2 billion now we are getting, it should go into investing in productive aspects of the economy to expand our economy so that we position ourselves when our debt repayment begins to kick in, we should not struggle. That said, I also believe that the tight monetary policy stance of the central bank, as we have it now, should be able to rein in inflation for us to be able to meet our target of 15% by the end of the year.
Thank you, Prof. We're so grateful that you took the time to join us this morning. Dr. Idrisu, 30 seconds.
Well, I would say that as government continues on the road to recovery, it should not neglect the financial sector. The financial sector is the engine of growth. The financial sector serves the needs of the private sector with regards to small-scale businesses as well. So part of the 250 million that is coming in from the World Bank, geared towards the establishment of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, I expect government to seriously, bring its attention to that. We cannot afford to record more losses from our banking sector.
And finally, Dr. Bamfo, you have the final word, 30 seconds.
All right. So from my perspective, I think getting access to the second tranche of the IMF disbursement is more of a relief. The government now has the ability to actually continue on some of the projects that have stalled that will create the enabling environment for investment to actually thrive. Obviously, there will be the temptation, given that 2024 is an election year, for them to actually spend in areas that will not actually help the productive sector. So what government has to do is to actually make sure that they don't fall into the temptation of spending just to get votes, but spending in productive sectors. And I believe that given the experience, the fact that they did it before the COVID-19 pandemic, they can actually repeat it. And I see 2024 as a year pivotal in terms of our turnaround to sustain high economic growth that we experienced from 2017 through to 2019 prior to COVID-19.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Those who joined the conversation, of course, for starters, we had Isaac Kofi J, data and research analyst here with Joy News. We also had Professor Ebo Turkson, economist, University of Ghana, Legon, Dr. Saad Idrisu, economist, Louisiana Economic, I beg your pardon, Louisiana Economic Development, and Dr. Josh Bamfo, economist and partner at Anderson, Nigeria. Well, coming up shortly, we have a conversation on the UK African Investment Summit 2024. We'll be hosting the UK's envoy, Dr. Alistair MacPhail. He joins the conversation with us right here on the AM show. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back on the AM show. Let's tell you now about the UK Africa Investment Summit scheduled for May 2024. Now, this summit will bring together political and business leaders from the UK and 25 invited African countries, as well as international and regional organizations, to set out enhanced commercial offers and strengthen UK-African partnerships. Well, joining us for a conversation on what exactly this will entail and what this means, not just for the UK, but the African counterparts is going to be engaging, we have Dr. Alistair MacPhail. He is the UK's envoy for this event. Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm going to start off with an unconventional question. Is this your first time in Ghana?
I don't think that's unconventional at all. It is my first time in Ghana. But I've been working in and around a lot of countries in Africa. I don't have much experience of West Africa. Most of my experience is in North Africa or East Africa. But I'm delighted to be here. I've a lot of friends from Ghana. And of course, I have been a great admirer of Ghanaian football. I'm sorry that that's not such a great topic right now. But we have been lucky enough in the UK to benefit from your football expertise.
Right. And I'm just going to follow up with this right before we get to the meat of the matter. Have you tried any of our cuisine yet?
I have. I haven't had the jollof rice yet, but I did have...
You have to before you leave.
I have to before I leave, but I did have a breakfast yesterday morning, which was a traditional one of rice and other things. I can't remember the name of it. But
is it wache maybe?
It was, that's it, yes.
Rice and beans.
Rice and beans, and if you go on our social media from UK and Ghana, but also my own feed, then you'll see me sampling it. It was delicious.
Okay, that's good to hear. Our food tends to be pretty spicy. I don't know whether you have the shito, but...
I love spicy food.
Okay.
I do.
Looks like you slot right in. You're right at home.
I feel it. I mean, it's a bit hotter and more humid than London is right now.
Yeah.
And so when I left London, it was about 0 degrees. And then I arrived in Ghana to about 30 degrees.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a shock.
Night and day. Yeah,
it was a bit
it is
of a
what
shock.
it is.
Yeah.
But let's now talk about the UK African Investment Summit. What is it and what really does it have on offer? Of course, from the standpoint of the UK and these 25 African countries that will participate.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss it. This is the second in-person UK African Investment Summit. We had the first one in 2020, and I attended it as an accompanying ambassador. At that time, I was the UK ambassador in Addis Ababa, and I accompanied the delegations from the government of Ethiopia, the African Union Commission, and the UN Economic Commission for Africa. So I've seen it firsthand, but now I'm on the inside as part of the team organising it. It's going to be the UK's largest event this year. We have invited 25 countries at the level of head of state or government. We are inviting a lot of businesses because this really is about jobs and growth. And our government is determined that we should be building modern, long-term partnerships of mutual benefit based on respect. So I was delighted in your introduction to hear you talking about not just being about the UK, but about the invited countries as well, because as far as we're concerned, this is as much about our friends and partners as about UK business.
Mm. So you are envoy now, yes. Like you said, you participated in the first one, but now you have that pivotal position as envoy. What exactly will you be doing? What does this mean as envoy?
As envoy
for this event?
Well, we have a large team back at headquarters who are organising the summit, making sure that we're doing what our Prime Minister wants, because the Prime Minister will be hosting it. And my job is to visit all 25 invited countries, to speak to the government, to speak to the private sector, to make sure that we're all working together before the summit, because the summit is an event, yes, but it's also a process. If there are going to be deals announced at the summit, it means there will be many months of preparation beforehand, just as happened in 2020. And it's about building momentum too. So some deals will not be ready for announcement, but also because we're going to have a lot of business-to-business contact at the summit, new partnerships, new friendships will be made, which will lead to deals in the future. So it's about building momentum, growing the partnerships, and building something that is mutually beneficial.
One thing I'm sure you would notice that on the back of COVID-19, the Russo-Ukrainian war, many economies have been impacted, including especially African economies. And you would also notice that there seems to be more of an interest from other countries, the East, just to leave it that way, Russia, China, in Africa, and of course the regular partners in the past of African countries from the West. What then would you say, with all this competition and all this attention that Africa is getting, what would you say are the unique selling points of this UK Africa Investment Summit?
You're right that there are a number of other countries who are showing interest in partnering with African countries, but in slightly different ways. For us, we're proud of the UK as an outward-looking nation which has benefited greatly from diaspora communities, and we will see some of our African diaspora communities taking part in the summit in different ways. But we have a different offer. This summit isn't the totality of our relationship with African countries. This is a summit dealing with the 25 countries we do most business with. That doesn't mean that there won't be other summits or different investment summits. But given what happened in 2020, given the growth of partnerships since then, but also, like others, we see the huge potential in Africa, young population, very talented. There is room for a lot of partners for you. We think we offer a unique package. One of the things we'll be doing in London is showcasing London as a global finance hub. But being an innovative nation, we will also be looking to discuss technology, including agri-tech, energy, including renewable energy, critical minerals, which are going to be of strategic importance to future economies and future technologies. We will be talking about infrastructure, and these are things that we think we can do in a different way from other countries. And we already have good cooperation with a number of African countries, and we think we can build even better.
I've already seen the list of countries that have been invited. Some economic powerhouses, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana. But which other countries have been invited? How many in total? And maybe what's the focus? What went into selecting these countries?
Well, it is 25 countries, which I know is not the whole of the African continent. But as I said at the beginning, these are the countries we do most business with. Yes, they are the powerhouses, and so the scale of our trade with Nigeria or South Africa vastly outstrips our trade with some other countries. But that doesn't mean we can't do better. For us, this is about potential and opportunity both ways. This is about jobs and growth both ways. This isn't just about the UK businesses investing in Africa. It's also about creating opportunities for collaboration, perhaps between British companies and, say, Ghanaian countries in a third country, or Ghanaian companies investing in the UK. We think we can create a win-win situation. And given that with all of these countries, we have excellent relations already, and with most of these countries, we have a growing investment partnership, we still think that there's room to do more. We still think there's room for expansion. And by making it 25 rather than 53, we think we can focus better so that when we have the business-to-business contacts and engagement at the summit, which will be 2 days rather than one this time, there will be scope for more deal making. We expect deals to be announced at the summit. And while we're not offering the same as some other countries, we still think that what we are offering is unique. It is about innovation. It is about respect. It's about mutual benefit. And we think that that is attractive to our partners. And that's certainly what I'm hearing.
And are you hoping to expand further? I mean, 53 countries, 25 invited. Are you hoping to make further inroads as far as this summit is concerned, going into the future with these other countries that are not participating this?
Well, we're looking at ways of including them in future fora, but we're focusing on this summit now. We're not even thinking about what the next summit will be or even where it will be. It might, the next time, because you mentioned COVID and Russia's invasion of Ukraine and whatever, we delayed the summit. It should have been last year, but unfortunately Her Majesty the Queen died and we're the new king to be crowned. So we delayed the summit by a year. This will be the UK's biggest event this year. But who knows, the next time it might be on the continent. It might not be in the UK, and it would be a completely different sort of summit. So we're not closing down options for the future. We just think that right now, this is our optimal approach.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to that coming on the continent of Africa, likely Ghana. Yeah, we're pitching for Ghana. But the first summit, of course, took place in 2020.
Yes.
And at that time, some deals were struck between countries, including Ghana.
Yes.
I'd like to find out from you, what deals, can you share some of these, and what progress has been made up to this point?
Well, there were a number of deals concluded at the time, but I should add, 5 weeks later, COVID hit, and that was unfortunate for all of us. But in terms of Ghana, there were about £330 million worth of deals done in 2020. Some came later, but a couple of projects which will be known to your viewers are the Tema Aflau Road project and the Kumasi Airport expansion. And there are others as well, and we hope that at this summit there will be even more. And one thing I'm doing right now is engaging with the government, and I've met private sector representatives as well to encourage a higher level of ambition.
There's also this bit, and I'm sure you're aware that our central bank has received the latest tranche of $600 million from the IMF. We're in the grips of an IMF program. We're expecting a chunk of money from them, from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank. African countries are highly indebted, and that has also impacted us even further on the back of those dynamics I stated. How will this summit help in any way? Is there any way that the summit would help alleviate in whatever way some of this indebtedness?
Well, the summit will be about jobs and growth. And so we hope that by creating deals which are of mutual benefit, that the financial difficulties that a number of countries are facing will not be completely addressed, but they will be lessened in some way by the fact that there will be new deals bringing investment into the country, creating jobs for the future, modern jobs that will operate in a different way. So the UK is a leading advocate of reform of the international financial system, but that's not the focus of the summit. The summit is about jobs and growth, and if Ghana or another country is an attractive investment destination, then those deals will happen.
Interesting. Now, you also speak, there is the UK Auto Investor Mission that is also going to be taking place. And how do you feel this summit merges with that? What are some of the benefits to be gleaned from?
Well, I think it shows that we are expanding our engagement as the UK. I was fortunate enough to be with the automotive industry delegation when they met His Excellency the Vice President yesterday. I saw them again last evening at a reception at the High Commissioner's residence. And there are new ways that they are looking to cooperate and collaborate with Ghanaian entrepreneurs, because think about it, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been talking about Ghana in the automotive industry, whereas now it's an exciting prospect. So the summit actually shows these things. With business-to-business engagement, it tells our businesses as well as other countries' businesses what the opportunities are. Part of what we're doing is also raising awareness, because there are misperceptions about the ease of doing business or the openness to investment, and it will help to address that.
So we can look forward to more engagement on that level, impacting, of course, business growth and all of that, because as jobs are created, like you rightly said, that will also eventually have trickle-down effects on the economy. But let's also look at a crucial aspect of our national life. We're in an electoral year, and of course, that also has so many dynamics involved. The stakes are high. How will this influence the UK-Africa Investment Summit? I mean, is there any thinking along those lines of what this would mean for the summit vis-a-vis the fact that Ghana is in an electoral year? Is there any thinking around that?
Well, I should also say that we are in an electoral year. But a number of countries are in an election year. You could say in the African context that this is a year of elections. But most deals are done between entrepreneurs, between businesses. Yes, there is government cover for investment. Governments create an enabling environment for investment. But for many of us, including for our partners looking at the UK, the government itself isn't the ones we are largely doing deals with. It is between businesses. That is why there is such a focus on business-to-business engagement at this summit. Of course, it is important that the political representation is there, ministers, etc. But the exciting thing is that the investment relations between most countries can happen regardless of which government is in power.
I'm looking at the platform that has been created, the chief aims, basically, of the summit, part of which include securing mutually beneficial major investments into African countries, facilitating that two-way trade and investment, of course, going both ways, African countries benefiting from the UK benefiting from African countries, and supporting policies and reforms that boost long-term prospects for investment. But we also know that at a time like this, countries like Ghana are in some form of austerity, like I mentioned, with an IMF program and all of that. How do we justify the cost of all of this to taxpayers? Because in your country as well, you're also having to bite the bullet, and Rishi Sunak himself has come under some fire.
Yeah, well, of course, there will be commercial sponsorship of the summit, but I would say that the value of the deals generated by the summit will be far greater than the cost of the summit. And we hope that that will be shared pretty well among all the countries represented, including the UK. We will be showcasing the UK as a financial hub, so there will be opportunities to engage with our major financial institutions, but also with some of our major companies as well, which are not yet present enough on the continent. So I think it would be that what is generated by the summit will be significant enough that the costs will look small by comparison.
Now, when you think of Brexit, mostly people would think of Europe, but of course it also has other far-reaching effects or impacts, so to speak. How has Brexit affected, if any at all, trade with Africa and, to be more specific, Ghana?
Well, trade in general has changed because now we're no longer in the European Union. We have the flexibility to conclude different agreements with our African friends, and we do have a new trading partnership with Ghana, and we do have tariff-free access for Ghanaian companies into the UK market. And so I would say that as we move forward, rather than having to wait for agreement among all the EU member states, that when it comes to structuring deals or bilateral trade relationships, we have much greater freedom of movement than we did before.
So you've already spoken about the trade engagement and all of that, but do you feel the summit is going to increase in any way African access? I mean, talking of access, we've had the AGOAs, now we have the African Free Trade Area and all of that, but specifically with the UK. Is the summit going to create further access as far as African investment, African business is concerned?
Well, the opportunities are there, and there are very few barriers at all. So if this summit generates deals, then that is the access. We don't need to create new structures. We have the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, we have various other ways of creating tariff-free access to the UK market. And so we feel that these deals that will be created for two-way trade, for investment in each other's economies, etc., will show that it is easy for you to do business in the UK, just as we hope it will be easy for us to invest in your country.
I have seen an expansion of access, especially as the world has globalized into or turned into a global village more and more. But some on that point would also tell you that, yes, while there is access on one front, usually with Western countries, there are also the issues of terms of trade, among others. Take Ghana's cocoa, for example. What are your expectations in that regard?
Well, I can't speak specifically about cocoa, but
I mean broadly.
Broadly, I would come back to, well, for Ghana and the UK, we do have a tariff-free trade agreement with you, a bilateral trade agreement. Of course, there will be areas or sectors which require greater attention, But in general, we want the UK to be an open market. And we want it to be possible for investors from anywhere to invest in the UK economy, and for the other countries to be attractive investment destinations for UK investment. And this is an ongoing project. Yes, there's an event in the spring, as you've mentioned, but this has been going on for years, developing and developing. There have been global shocks, etc. But there will be deals announced at the summit. There will be deals not quite ready, but will be announced afterwards. And there will be a momentum. And all of these issues that you identify will be addressed as time goes on. Because we want to remove the grit from trading relationships. And you've mentioned Brexit. For us, Brexit is still quite new, of course. And so we are also developing our approach to global trade.
How about specifically focusing on climate financing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the talk about carbon credits. Only yesterday I was in a conversation with someone about how African countries especially can tap into that. But climate financing, how is this summit going to help enhance the benefits for African countries?
Well, we shall see. I can't talk about specific deals at the moment, but what I can say is that our largest financial institutions will be taking part. The City of London, the London Stock Exchange, you name it, we hope they will be represented. And so when it comes to financing, as I said, we want to showcase the City of London as a global financial hub, but that's in all its manifestations. And one of the themes of the summit is climate-related industries of the future, such as renewable energy. So these will certainly be highlighted and discussed, and hopefully deals progressed at the summit.
So, of course, there was the 2020 installment, then the virtual ones that followed, and now we're having another physical event in 2024. If you look at the value of deals in 2020 and juxtapose that with what we can expect in 2024, what would you say? Are we upping the ante?
Well, the ante comes beforehand. So I would say that, we did about 6.5 billion worth of deals last time. As I said, we did about 330 million with Ghana. We are hopeful that this will be a successful summit. We're working very hard to make sure it is. We understand that there has been severe pressure on global economies as a result of COVID, as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which had a huge impact on supply systems, on grain, on all sorts of other things, oil and gas. But we're hoping that we can make a dent in the right direction at the summit. And while I can't talk about a specific sum, because there's still some deals we want to get over the line, we're pretty hopeful that it will be a good result. But again, as I said, it's not just the result. Just as in 2020, there were deals that weren't quite ready to be announced and have been announced since. We are confident that the same will happen this time round. There will be deals that are pretty mature, but not quite ready to be announced, but will perhaps still be announced this year.
Right.
So I think the level of investment both ways will still look good.
So if I gather correctly, some of those deals that were not announced or stalled on the back of COVID, since then, there have been some follow-ups, right?
There have been follow-ups. The British companies and their collaborators on the continent have continued to discuss possible deals, etc., or bringing those deals to maturation. And we expect the same this time round. We think there will be more deals. We know there will be more deals to be announced, but we hope there will be more deals just on the verge as well.
Right. Out of curiosity, who from Ghana is participating in the UK Africa Investment Summit this year? Is the president going to be there? Who's going to be there?
I don't know. But we hope to learn soon. We have our Prime Minister sent out his invitations last summer, invited heads of state and government from the 25 countries. Of course, we hope that Ghana will be represented at the highest level, but that's Ghana's decision. We hope that there will be very senior representation, president or vice president, senior ministers or ministers in the relevant sectors of the economy, etc. And of course, a healthy representation from the Ghanaian private sector.
Right. And I'm sure there are many others in Ghana and other parts of Africa who would want to follow this event. How can people participate? How can they follow this event, whether virtually or otherwise?
We're still looking. There will be ways of following it, social media, etc. There will be quite heavy comms coverage from the UK. There will be media presence, of course. It will be. It won't be a complete free for all because there will be space constraints, but it will be well covered in the media. Okay,
so we're looking at the 23rd and 24th
of April.
Yes.
Those were the original dates, but we've had one or two conflicting events happening at exactly the same time, which we want to be successful as well. So we have been in consultation with friends and partners, including on the continent, to find dates that will work. And we have been speaking to our Prime Minister as well to make sure that the eventual date works for everyone.
Okay, so that is still in the works?
It's still in the works, but we expect it to be in the spring.
Firmed up pretty soon.
In the spring, yeah. Well, I thought it might be firmed up before I came here.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for the reply, but we're confident it will go ahead.
All right. So here we are, 25 African countries participating, locking horns in a good way with the UK as far as business growth investment are concerned. What will be your final words? What are you expecting come this event, this summit?
Well, I would say that this is a very welcome opportunity to build on what has been happening, to perhaps kickstart new relationships, which have been a bit in the doldrums because of the pandemic, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and various other challenges to the world economy. We want to show that Britain is open to investment both ways. We have strong relationships with our friends on the continent, and we believe that everyone who comes to London will feel that it was worth coming, that they've gone away with good deals, and that they have enjoyed the experience, not just at the summit itself, but in London too.
Well, we look forward to that, and we share in that optimism as well. Dr. McPhail, thank you very much for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you just heard Dr. Alistair McPhail. He, of course, is the envoy from the UK for the Africa, or the UK-Africa Investment Summit to come to take place later this year, sometime in April or moving forward. Well, thank you for staying on this conversation. There's still a lot more action coming your way on the AM show. Stick and stay. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show. And yes, indeed, we are your election headquarters. For our installment today of AM on Wheels, we take you to that major constituency, Botiano, Englishi, and Manfro, where we'll be hearing from some residents and later on interacting with Member of Parliament for the area, Sylvester Tete. My colleague, Sweetie Abochi, is on hand, and she's going to be having an interaction with some of those residents, and later on, the Member of Parliament, Sylvester Tete. Sweetie, if you can hear me, over to you.
Well, welcome to another edition of AM on Wheels, where we connect the constituents to their representatives. Now, today we are in Botiano, Englishi, Manfro constituency, where specifically at Tuba Junction, a taxi rank that encapsulates lots of people from various parts of the constituency. As we do, this is the citizens' microphone, so I'm going to give it to them for them to tell us what their problems or issues are in this constituency. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, tell me, what are some of your concerns in this constituency?
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Joseph, a driver here. And in fact, madam, the problem we are facing in this station is very, very serious. You know, our roads here are all bad. If you go to Kokrobite, it's bad. Go to Kakraba, it's bad. Fulani is bad. Koche down is bad. So we are facing a lot of problems here. And it is really spoiling our cars. As I'm speaking to you now, my car is at shop, which I have no money for maintenance. So we are pleading to the government for help. We are pleading. We are seriously pleading for help. So we have a lot of problems here. We have a lot of problems here.
Do your MP know about the situation of the road, spoiling your cars and all that? Do you think he's aware of some of these issues?
Yes, please. He is aware. He is aware. He is aware. And I think he is also trying his best to do something about it. But as of now, we are still in the problem. We are still in the problem.
I'll come back to you in a bit. Hello, boss. This is your turn now. What are some of your issues in the constituency? Because we are meeting up with your MP in a few moments, once we wrap up from here. So what are some of your concerns that we should put on his table?
All right. So this is Isaac Odro from Tuba Station here. I think one of our major problems here is the road, as my brother Elias said it. We are only pleading on the government to help us to fix our road. In fact, today as we speak now, a lot of us bear as a witness that when you go to Abosokan to buy a spare part, just one part you buy today, if you're a driver, a taxi driver here, you can work for like a week to get that amount. So looking at this, how will you move forward in life? As you push on, just one spare part can bring you back. So we are only pleading, the government will come into our aid and then help us to fix our road, especially from Tuba Junction here to Tuba Roundabout, specifically in front of Stockwell School. When you look at the situation of the road over there, it's very, very, very bad, especially when it rains. When it rains, in fact, car does not go, it does not come, and then a lot of our cars here spoil that. Even in the evening when you come here and you see passengers queuing here, looking for a car to their destination, you even feel pity for them. So we are begging, we are only pleading that government will come into our aid, fix our road. That's all that we are asking for. We are not asking for much, just the road. As citizens, we are not asking for money, we are not asking for any property. We are only pleading that he help us to fix our roads. That's all that we are asking. In fact, when our cars spoil, we bear the cost. We buy the spare part. We buy everything. We are not putting on the government. We are not telling government to buy us the part. All that we are asking, that he should help us to fix our roads. That's all we are asking.
How long has the situation been like this? Are the roads, was it a working road constructed well that deteriorated over time, or it has always been like this without any...
All right. I think about a year or 2 years now, that's the road got into that situation. It was a tarred road, but our construction over here, nobody knows. They do the road and then they don't do any maintenance. So it just started gradually. Now the situation is worse. It's worse at all. So about 2 years now, we have been suffering on this road.
Well, let me come to you now, boss. Please tell us your name and some of your issues here in the constituency. Or you can add your voice to the roads issue if that's also your...
Okay. My name is Abdul Razak. We have one of our problems in the station or our roads. But when we come forward to the MP, we told us we don't have problem with the road. We have problem with the road, but it's on working on it. Because so far as you order or you take an application or a road, you need a road, you just go to the road minister. And so far, front of me, our MP bring road minister 4 hours in this constituency.
Oh, I understand your trail of thoughts, but right now we are just trying to gather as many issues as possible because we are going to see your MP, and then he will tell us what he's doing to make the situation go away. So aside the road, if you have any other concern, this is the time to share it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. One issue about the road, you are still on the road, because I want to finish with the road, then you go to the next point. One issue about the road is, so far, our MP have bring the road minister to the constituency 4 hours. So far, we are in about next month, this road, I'm sure something to do about it. So How as a driver stock, it's the same thing that we are having a problem on the road. But the MP give assurance to us that by next month, this road will start.
All right, just a second, I'll come back to you. I see you shaking your head. You have a lot to say. Please, go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying, yeah, so many years, no maintenance. MCE, and that's all your maintenance or MCE, you only modi our obo area. We share English among from a Fituba roadway, a colico, Labera camp, Sir traffic at your highway, when you divert Efaha. No share, I could say the pond, MP, Casan and Nimuhono, Kakrano, and yet in super statiato. Be passenger for a begua. I say a casting be brave. MC, you want adhere or your era. Was it MP on your MC na there or your maintenance? No call tap rapport on film Guquaniso on ye 24 hours so I'm quaniso. Until you prefer say MC in one son. If so on boy English among fro. English among fro on boy. And I say MP honorable sla tete on so I'm quaniso. And so, you know, when you be there and far quanus, so when you be and foul. Say, I can't tell back say almost 3 million, 4 million, and send a tomato car tie. Nebia, wait 3 million, Juma way in a week, Nebia when I say 5 million, or ye 3 million to tire. I know a becca would be coffee. Until yes, Rawan say, when you be being far a quanu, my MC particular. Uko Flania, quanu and ye, Uko bridge be war. Adomos ho. Sabridge no a leaky to Iron City. We bet me afa ako kaswa bridge no almost 2 years ni can't be faso. Bridge no anka mu betimi anka me mu ko ho se mu ko hwe bridge no. Na mu akɔhwe sa na bridge niti. Won ye bibia emfa ho emaye. Nti yesremo won ye bibia de emfa English amanfo rules no emaye kakra ye danas.
Well, he says that he understands the MCE is the one responsible for maintenance work on the roads. And so, you know, in his opinion, the man should be replaced because they're not doing much. There's also a situation of a bridge that's leaking in some parts of the constituency that also need the attention of government, central government, the member of parliament, and the appropriate authorities. Thank you all so much. If there are no, please, do you have anything to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah. Okay. My name is Isaac from Tuba Taxi Rank. I think, as my colleagues were saying, it's true. We have a challenge, and the challenge that we have here is our road networks. It's worrying us a lot, and then it's costing us to our parts. When you are going to buy your spare parts, it's very serious. So as you can see today, you are here. We increase our fare a little because of car spare parts and the insurance. We increase because of that. We increase our fares small. So our road networks here is very bad and it's killing us. So we are pleading for them to come to our aid.
Well, thank you all so much. Right from here, in about 5 minutes, we're catching up with Sylvester Tete, who is a member of parliament for Botiano Englishman from constituency, and he has to respond to these concerns raised by his constituents. Keep watching. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back on the AM show. AM on Wheels will be back because now we're going to be having an interaction in a bit with the Member of Parliament for that area, Botiano Ngleshi Amanfro. That will be later when Sweetie Abochi actually lands him. Of course, she had an interaction with the constituents. Later, she'll be having that interaction. But now, in the studio, we're heading to the OT region, and it's all about the regional minister, Joshua Makubu. He's attained quite a number of feats, but we're going to be talking about his region and what exactly has been happening there. The name, Joshua Bakubu. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
You're welcome.
It's good to have you, and I think it's only fitting to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Okay. It's my first time, actually. So he's my regional minister. He's my regional minister because of where I come from in Ghana. But to start off the conversation, I would ask the OT region, since its creation, I mean, you've been there, you've been at the helm of affairs. What has been happening in the OT region?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just as you indicated, after the creation of the region, we need to set up offices for the various agencies, especially the government offices. And also we started with the regional administration block. We also did the directorate for the health, directorate for education, directorate for agri-feeder rules, and then that of the urban rules. And then we are working on other. Some of them have been completed, others are yet to complete. We have also been involved in the provision of some social amenities, ranging from water, educational facilities in the secondary schools as well as the basic school levels. So far, we've been doing the normal job of government. In terms of security, yes. As I speak now, we have the Regional Police Command. We have other security centers like immigration, the customs, what they call it, prisons and fire service, who are all doing what they are supposed to do. And that has helped us to be able to rise to the occasion when there are some security challenges.
So in other words, the institutions of government that must feature in a region, because that used to be a part of the erstwhile Volta region. So you've been able to put all of these in place as of now?
Yeah, majority of them have been put in place. The most critical ones, I think we have them now. And then we are looking forward to getting the others to come on board.
All right. So let's now focus on another aspect of the region. And you spoke about security a short while ago. We all know of what has happened in Nkwanta in recent times, and the standoff and the curfew. We had an interaction just about maybe 2 weeks ago on people in that area, how it is affecting economic life and all that. But walk us through what happened and what the RegSec, for example, has done on the back of that so far.
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of Nkwanta, like somebody would say, is an issue that has been there among brothers. I always call them brothers because if you look at the adhere, the Achode, and the Chala, there are people who have either intermarried since January, before some of us were born. As I speak now, you will not count 1, 2, 3 adhere houses that you will not have an Achode nephew or niece there, and then the same thing at the Achode side, and then the Chala. So, but it has to do with dispute over the lands mainly within the Nkwanta township, which sometimes they have been in and out of court, in and out of these traditional courts as well. But it's like as time goes on, positions become entrenched, tensions build up. We've been trying, just as a regional security council or the municipal security committee can do, where there are possible clashes, we come in to see how we can tame it. But this time around, I think that because of how entrenched people were, it went beyond the normal heckling we used to know. People refused to go to court, and then people have to rely on the use of strength, which was very unfortunate. However, I think that with in collaboration with the security agencies and the efforts some chiefs and other residents have put in place, we have been able to kind of reduce tension in town, and life is beginning to pick up in Nkwanta as it used to be. For us, the young ones, we've always referred to Nkwanta as the city of love in the OT region, and so it was until this unfortunate incident. But life has started picking up, even though the curfew is there. Now, after the hospitals, they were operating, churches have resumed, schools have resumed, the market center, the population is increasing on each market day. So we expect that when things remain like this, the report we'll get from the security agency will possibly inform a review of the curfew. However, we are still in talks with the chiefs And the Bishop of the Kali Diocese of Jasikei is also put together a committee in collaboration with RISEC, and there are plans to continue to engage the chief to see how we can find a lasting solution to these menace.
You mentioned the review, of course, the RISEC has to sit to determine when, but do you have any idea? Because like I said, we've had interactions with some of, even the young men. I had an interaction and some people said that some of the young people had left that area to other parts of the region because they feel economically and others, they are being hampered. So do you have any idea within which period you can work on this so that the curfew can be lifted?
Well, for us, we review the situation every week. We look at what is happening, pick intelligence from the security people on the ground and the music as well. So as and when they are, but looking at how stable it has become in the past 3 weeks, I think if it continues this way and we begin to see more effort from the various ethnic groups in engaging their people, I think it will
be
stand like
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it should be sooner than later.
Okay. Let's talk, right before we get into other personal exploits, let's talk about how your government has fared in power in the OT region, but nationally. I mean, whatever affects Accra or other parts of the country also affects the OT region. You can talk about inflation, you can talk about the cost of living, you can talk about many other bits, the exchange rate, but generally how people feel about the economy and about governance. How would you say this NPP administration has fared? This is an electoral year, so these are questions that would come up. How do you feel you have fared? And do you think going into election 2024, it is indeed possible to break the 8?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you're asking about how the government of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the NPP has fared since he was sworn into office on the 7th of January 2017, I can say that so far so good. Government has done well for us in the OT region. At least having our somehow independence and seeing what it is bringing to us now. If we take the creation of the OT region alone, the ordinary teacher who would have left Pasa and then to travel to Ho to get his form endorsed, and then for steady leave, get a form endorsed for a leave or any other thing, wouldn't have to do that again. It is not only reducing the cost of transportation, but the time that you need to have traveled, and then sometimes you may have to even sleep and pay accommodation. It's no longer like that. Governor has been brought closer to you. The other time I was telling the Brigadier General for the, the Southern Command when he came, at least when the issues in Nkwanta started and other things, the response time, because the security agencies were closer to us, they were able to move in immediately. So when it comes to raid governance and then those who want to come to the Regional Coordinating Council to do things, those who never had the opportunity of even visiting and then interacting with the minister at the Regional Coordinating Council, none have that opportunity. So in terms of governance, at least governance has been closer to us now than it was. If you come to Dambai, where the regional capital is, everybody will attest to the fact that the cost of, the value of land has increased, the value of rooms for rent has increased, and those who are into that area are actually putting up accommodation facilities and they are making money. So economically, they are being empowered in one way or the other. Now, when you come to the region as a whole, if it has to do with road network, yes, we still know that we have a lot to do as far as the road network is concerned. However, what is undisputable remains that the MPP regime under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has done more, made more impact in the road sector in the OT region than the previous government. And when we are talking, you remember the 2016 when he was on his campaign tour between Jasika and Hohwe, and the statement he made, Now, I think from Hohwe, you need less than 15 minutes to get to Jasika. If you have been coming home, that stretch has been done, and from Jessica to do the PBSU, who lies squarely in your district, that is the KJB district, where Asato is the anchor, has also been successfully done. Yeah, there were quite a number of roads we were working on that have stalled for maybe due to some lack of payment, but at least my last check at the road ministry.
Well, there's the latest disbursement from the IMF. Hopefully that should help with some of these projects.
Yeah, and then if we come to educational infrastructure, I want to say that because we are a region on our own now, the implementation of the free TVET has also been something that the Oti region has benefited. If you go to Krachin Chumburu, we have a technical institute now, well equipped with all modern facilities from fashion design to agri carpentry, building and building technology, which we see that is a step in the right direction. And we are putting up another TVET center in Dambai itself, that is the regional capital, which is also going to equip the youth in that area. Justice delivery, as I speak to you, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government has been able to deliver 5 new courts in the Oti region that came with bungalows for churches. Now we have a high court. Those of us who are litigants will not have to travel to Hohoi or where we need to use 2 days to be able to attend to a case. Okay. That has also been brought. So far, so good. I think if we're going to vote and then we want to compare and contract records, deliverables, I think breaking the 8 should be very easy, especially having His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as our flag bearer. It should be possible for us to go through.
So you've heard Joshua Makubu, the Oti regional minister. He says if it's record for record, then breaking the 8 should be very easy for the vice president. But let's talk now about you. You've been up to a number of interesting things in recent times, and one of which is getting your doctoral degree. And congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
Many people do not know that you're a PWD, a person with disability. We're also bringing this to the fore so that people will realize being a person with disability does not imply inability.
Yeah.
So tell us about this latest feat, securing a doctoral degree. What was it in?
Finance.
Oh, wow. So maybe you'll be heading to the finance.
No, not necessarily. I think
that was just a joke. It was on the lighter side. But what pushed you to do this, to secure this doctoral degree in finance?
Sometimes back, I made a statement. Growing up as a child, I was born with a defective knee from infancy. By age 9, my right leg was amputated. And I started looking for alternatives. And I realized that the most suitable alternative was to get some skills, was to use my brains, acquire skills that would make me useful to society. So embarking on the educational journey hadn't been very smooth, but then I felt that was the only option for me, that I need to push and push harder. One, to let people know that, look, when you get to the situation that I got myself into, becoming a person with disability, there's always a way to get an alternative to make yourself useful in society. I've been telling people that what will our hands be known for if they are not useful? What will our legs be known for if they are not useful? The Black Stars, excuse me, they were selected based on the fact that they were physically fit. At least they have legs. But when they went and they couldn't perform, I don't think anybody even see them as maybe people with charities, but maybe that was the other way around. But if I don't have a leg, if I don't have an arm, if I've lost my sight, but it comes to decision making, I can offer opinions that will be useful to society by attaining some kind of degrees that will make me competent in that direction. So that is what has motivated me. And I've always had, my late father and my late sister have been my champions. I remember there was a time when my brother started misbehaving towards me. I wrote a letter whilst in secondary school to my dad, and I told him that, look, I know all that my brothers are doing, but no matter what, the vulture will never eat grass. My dad responded by saying that before I eat grass, he would have eaten grass before me. So long as he remained alive, I would never eat grass. I saw that as an impetus, something that pushed me. Then my late sister one day told me, hey, Joshua, my mom gave birth to 5 of us. If money is thrown on the street, you are the only person who will not be able to rush and pick it. Therefore, our effort, support to your education is not for you to finish school and come and support us back, but to make you a responsible citizen, to also contribute to your personal development as well as the nation. And these are things that I felt that I didn't need to disappoint them, and they kept me going even when the going becomes tougher.
I'm sure they are very proud of you, as we all are, for this feat. But tell me, as a person with disability, what were the challenges? I have been in class before with visually challenged people, so I know that it's not easy, it's not smooth sailing. What were some of the challenges you had to go through to get this?
Yeah, I think the major thing has to do with accessibility. Our educational institutions, I have always been saying that when we are applying for admissions, they make us indicate whether you are a male or female, you have a disability or not. So when that is done, I expected that data should be used. Even if the existing structures are not accessible, at least allocation of classrooms should be done in such a way that classrooms that have persons with disabilities will be at levels that at least they will not have to struggle a lot to get there. So that is what I think we should work on. Then again, acceptability is a problem. You get into the environment and people, instead of waiting to see what you can do, they are quick to prejudice you. So
they judge
you before. Sometimes you have to be in class until the first semester results are released before people say, hey, this person can be with that. So your first semester, you are very sure that you cannot even get a steady partner until you begin making contributions in class and other things. So I just want to appeal to my college students. When you see persons with disability, let's show them that they love. Let's put some confidence in them and encourage them. They have enormous talents that they can bring to bear. But if they are not accepted, I said it because I have a professor, incidentally he supervised my PhD thesis, Professor Charles Indom. When I started my MPhil in Legon, it got to a point, things were a bit difficult, both financially and then maybe social alignment. But he does something. Any time I went to him, or he went to refer to me in class, he doesn't mention my name, he used the name Josh. So it gave me that opportunity to get closer to him and feel that, yeah, this is somebody I can rely on, I can cry to, I can tell him my problem. When people say what is worrying them, it relieves them. So the challenges are normal. Yesterday, when during the graduation ceremony, when they were doing the student enrollment and other things, they gave the distribution in terms of nationality, gender, and other things. I was a bit worried. I never heard anything about what the disability status of the student. I was thinking that by the time the Vice Chancellor will finish the speech, we have been able to tell how many persons with disabilities were currently in school and those who were even graduating this year. When that is being done, then you are aware that they know that you are part of them, you are in the system, these are the peculiar challenges. But the fact that somebody is not able to recognize your presence tells you that the person has not adequately prepared for you. And some of these things, there are things we can easily do. You don't need more money to be able to classify your student population into PWDs and then non-PWDs.
So these are things that, and of course we see some of them in our academic institutions where even access roads where people using wheelchairs can be wheeled on are not available. Access to classrooms. So I get exactly what you mean. And these are all things that we can do better at as a people. Look, there was a time when I saw white canes that our brothers and sisters who are visually impaired will use. And that sometimes is also from government because, you know, the association, they need assistance. They don't get them. All of these are there and they are problematic.
And some of the challenges you don't even need money to do. Maybe just a statement. For instance, when you get to our university campuses, tech, where I did my first degree and something like that, they'll say taxis are not allowed beyond this point.
A certain point, right.
I just like, look, let's just add it, except taxis with PWDs on board.
Right.
That way you don't need money to do that. Yeah. The security person there, we just have to make sure that the person on board is a PWD and it go through. Because if not, if you have to alight at the Volta car park and use your wheelchair to access, if you are lucky you meet management, they have the part. If you don't meet them, and it is the lower level people who have been instructed to ensure that no taxis are allowed beyond this point, it becomes a problem. So,
well, we have to go, but in the manner of your professor, I'll call you Josh. Josh, what more can we expect from you, especially as this is an electoral year? What does the future look like for Joshua Makubu?
Thank you very much. The future is very bright, especially as we work to ensure that His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia becomes the next president. Politically, I've been telling people that in this year, 2024, there's only one project, and that project is to get the vice president elected, get MPP retain power. It doesn't really matter who is where. No, I don't do my politics like that. It is one thing at a time. From now to December 7th, mine is to make sure that the vice president is elected. I have 9 parliamentary candidates that are very capable, right from Guam to Nkwanta North, Karachi West, Karachi East, and other things, that if we push, majority of them should be able to win their seat. And that is what I will be seen doing 2024 as the minister for the region.
Right. Thank you so much for having joined the conversation. Once more, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Keep rising. That is Joshua Makubu, and he recently bagged for himself a doctoral degree in finance. He is proudly a person with disability who is making the most of a situation. It's said that when life serves you lemons, you make lemonade, and he's definitely making lemonade. Well, shortly, we're going to be connecting to Sweetie Abochi. We continue with AM on Wheels. She was there at Botiano, English Yamanfro, engaging some residents. Now, we head back to her as she engages the Member of Parliament, Sylvester Tete. Sweetie, if you can hear me, over to you again.
With Honourable Sylvester Tete, who's the MP for Botiano, English Yamanfro constituency, to put on his table the grievances and issues that his constituents raised when we interacted with them a few moments ago. Honourable, thank you so much for making time to chat with us. We're just coming back from the taxi rank at Tuba, where most of the drivers from all over your constituency have a complaint. Majority of them are saying that the roads are bad, which is causing their cars to, causing damage to their cars. What is your response to the road situation?
Well, thank you very much. I need not to be told roads are bad because I live here. In fact, you drove to my house and you saw the road to my house. Yes, of course. So I need not to be told that the roads are bad. But as a member of parliament, let me place on record, people have this wrong perception that I've been in parliament for 2 terms or more. I'm just 3 years old in parliament. I inherited this bad nature of roads. Some places worse than what these people are complaining about. So you need to prioritize and you need to make a move. As an MP, you don't have resources to construct roads. You only can lobby and advocate for central government attention. And let me be honest with you. When I assumed office as a member of parliament, I realized that, and it's part of the electioneering campaign. And I told them, if you are looking for a good advocate, a good spokesperson, the best in this constituency at the time we're having the elections, I'll be the one. And indeed, after the elections, I had to understand the situation very well. I brought the road minister here. For 4 hours, to undertake comprehensive assessment with all the engineers from urban roads, from feeder roads and municipal engineers, and all of them were here, regional director of urban roads. They were all here with me for 4 good hours. In that 4 hours, we have to do measurement, we have to do assessment and everything. Went through a process for approval. The Minister of Road had approved 40 kilometers of roads for us. Those interventions we've started. I mean, if you had time to go to KFC to Ajasco, it was the worst of all the roads we had in this constituency. Today, it's been asphalted. Part is under construction. It's part of the 40 kilometers approved by the road minister. Again, Broadcasting Road. If you had ever heard of the famous Broadcasting Road where Asamoah used to live, if it rained, you couldn't have accessed his house. On many occasions, Asamoah himself had attempted to reshape the road to no avail. That road today there's a bitumen surface on that road. Beyond that, we are still pushing for completion of the 40 kilometers that have been approved. I have done my bit. What is left? Yesterday, just 3 days ago, the regional minister was here. We cut sort to start the works at Babadogo. 2 years ago, it rained, we lost 2 people over there. So Babadogo stretch up to Adansimang and New Botiano is under construction as we speak, just 3 days ago, as part of the 40 kilometers approved and the work had begun. So there are a lot of intervention. As I speak to you, 2 major roads will be starting before March. That is the before 2. Yes, before March. All things being equal. Because for me, I go to the ministry, if approved road for us, you need to put the tender and get a contractor. It is not every contractor that has capacity to construct the road as the people expect. So from Tuba Junction through Fulani to Red Top is part of the roads that have been approved for. And the old barrier, all the way to Kukrubiti, the coastal road, this is what I've done in 3 years. I can understand the frustrations of my people and the drivers. And I keep telling them they should bear with me and have patience with me. There are places that they might not have had even 2 kilometers of roads. But this is what I've been able to do in the last 2 years. Beyond this, I know there are places that as an MP, you see the state of it, you need to dip your hands in your pocket and assist the community to do self-help projects. I have done that. I've donated more than 600 bags of cement to support communities to do that. I've bought more than 600 trips of latrite in the last 3 years. A latrite costs about 1,200. Quantify the cost. This is not common fund payment. It is out of pocket. My own businesses that I do, I put the money out there, sometimes supported by my constituency executives, to give respite to the people. And this respite that we give, if it rains, it washes away because it's not as firm. And the topology of our place, you see this road here, it's a bypass constructed during Professor Mills's time, just to ease the traffic and allow the Kaswa interchange to be constructed. This hole goes all the way to Budumbrem. But because they did not do proper, how do we call it, analysis or drainage system here, that portion had caged in. So you see the bad nature here, the rest of the road is okay. But for the bad and the poor work they have done, this place wouldn't have been calling for that situation we have now. And again, the root cause of this is the continuous degradation of the mountain you see up there. So when it rains, it doesn't bring water to the road. It brings silt. So once the silt settles on the asphaltic overlay, it destroys it. So these are multifaceted problems that the constituency knows. But we have become so impatient. I can understand, because if you go to the mechanic shop, the next moment you are there, if you're a driver like I'm a driver like them, I will also complain as they are doing. But I keep telling them, this is what I've been doing as far as our roads are concerned.
Sorry, do you think all these things that you say you're doing is enough to, guarantee you a second term? I'm asking this because after speaking to the constituents off camera, some of them express some sentiments vehemently that they don't think you're doing enough. And your constituency is huge. Are you saying that these roads and these charitable things you're doing for your constituency is enough? Or how hopeful are you simply for the next term?
About my re-election. I don't live for my re-election. I live for the development of the community, and we must be doing what is right. I'm telling you, MPs had come and gone. There are roads over 30 years that had never been touched in this constituency. So every 4 years, change. Which MP is coming to come in? I've told you what I've done that nobody has been able to do. If previous MPs has done what I'm doing today, we wouldn't have been where we are. So if you are voting for me because the roads are bad, the next MP you bring, it will be worse than me. And you tell me, you even thought that I've been in parliament for 8 years. You, as a media person, thought so. So I can't fault them. But I'm saying that I've been in parliament. If you may not like me, But my work speaks volume, and I'm better placed in terms of my records. That is not the only thing we take to the elections. There are many, many other interventions I've done in the last 3 years. So I've not been voted for to build only roads in this constituency. However, when it comes to the road sector, my records, I want them to challenge me that any MP had ever existed in this constituency that had a superior road intervention in terms of advocacy and real impact than me. I want them to challenge me that this MP came, he did A, B, C, D more than you. You are a media person. Perhaps you don't know this place, so they can talk and go away with it that I'm not doing much.
It's not about talking and going away with it. This is me listening to what people are saying and just telling you what they're saying so that you can respond to it.
I told you something before, that there's nothing anybody will say. I remember these complaints were worse at the broadcasting junction than any taxi union. And they are the biggest taxi union we have. It was worse. Today, go there. It will be a different story. So that is the human nature. Once this road is fixed, their story will change.
So how soon do you think these issues will go away?
Yes, I want the media to know how soon the issues will go away. Does not rest with me. I don't pay the money for the road construction.
You are the one orchestrating the developmental project as the member of parliament.
I want you also to, you judge the MP by level of advocacy for the plight of the people. Beyond that, I've told you 40 kilometers of roads have been approved. A contractor had been assigned to the road. He start work, first IPC is raised. He's not paid. So he stalled, the work had stalled. You blame the MP. As a media person, when they raise those questions, and as I'm telling you now, you also have an obligation to educate them that beyond the advocacy and subsequent approval for construction, payment rests with the central government.
MP, thank you so much. Let's move away slightly from the issues of your constituency and focus on... The issue is, what the issues they raised is bad roads. And you say that you're doing enough and you are still, work is in emotion. You're advocating, you've brought people, 40 kilometers road have been approved. So we hear you, although you've not added timelines to it.
I'll urge you, please. I'll urge you, when you live here, the places I've mentioned, I can detail somebody for you to travel on those roads as you go and make it part of your report to make it complete.
I hear you. Thank you. Now, final question before I go. We don't have enough time. Ghana just received $600 million from the IMF. You are also the vice chairman of Parliament's Communication Committee. Is that right? Is there anything Parliament is doing to ensure that the money is put to good use? And do you think that your party's push or demand for the finance minister to resign has become a stalemate situation because we don't see anything happening anymore, especially because now the money has hit the accounts of Ghana?
I'm not sure members of parliament called for the finance minister to resign on the basis of the fact that money had not hit our account.
But about 98 members of parliament, NPP members of parliament, were calling for him to resign. And then the minority also, were moving for a vote of censure. I'm just asking if Parliament is doing anything right now to ensure, are there any measures in place? Is there anything that they're doing to check?
I'm finding it difficult to have the dichotomy between the IMF money hitting our accounts and the finance minister asked to resign or a censorship.
The vice chairperson of Parliament's Communication Committee. I'm just asking because this is a current...
So, but the questions must be situated well because you bunch three things together. I'm trying difficult to find a dichotomy between the money hitting our... Yes, I'm saying that yes, the money has hit account. It's a process we are going through. We've gone to the IMF for a bailout. The second tranche has come. There were skeptics who thought that we couldn't have had an external debt exchange agreement properly so that we can have the second tranche. It was condition precedent. It tells you the travel of the finance minister last week had really yielded the results, much awaited results. However, for how to put the money into goods, the one giving you the money inside had okayed the programs and the plans you have for the use of the money. Otherwise, they wouldn't have released the money to you. And this plan had gone through Parliament. So what is left is what we call an oversight of Parliament over what had been agreed by the one giving you the funding and what you have said you are going to use it for.
That's all I'm asking. If there's something like that and what the plan says, so I was just thinking you shed more light on it. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time.
Oh, I wish you had. My final words are that for me in this constituency, I've always asked people to be patient with me. And what I'm doing, unless somebody has a compelling record to show that somebody has done better than I'm doing. It's a process. It's work in progress. We can't fix all the roads in 4 years, but significant number of them, and strategic ones for that matter, are being constructed. As I speak, as I move here, I'm going to a place to inspect drain works. If you would like, you can follow me. It's part of the work I'm doing. I can't fix the government cannot fix all the roads in 4 years. So people must be patient with us. Somebody had it today, tomorrow will be your turn. So that's all I'm saying. The linking of roads to who an MP should be. Obviously, when you travel that trend, I wish you have time. I could take you through health, education, social intervention, job creation for this constituency and compare it.
Hopefully we'll have another time and have a full-blown conversation about you and what you're doing in your constituency. But thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. So you're still watching the AM show, and this is where we draw the curtains for today's edition of AM on Wheels. My name is Sweetie Abochi. I did this with Benjamin Akakpo. Keep watching.